5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Good evening. Welcome to the Select Board meeting of the Town of Long Meadow. It is Monday, September 18th, and let's start with the pledges of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. So, great. We have a couple of things going on today. We do have a special hearing for liquor license that starts at 7:10. So we'll move on with that. But I guess we'll start with announcements. And we have our first announcements. I don't know, Stephen, if you want to talk about the police department.
Sure, they're going to be offering another round of rape, aggression, self-defense classes for women starting in October. And town offices will be closed to the public on Friday, October 6th for our annual file cleanup day. And for the 5 of you, we'll also be doing kind of an employee picnic that day as well. We intend to do employee recognition and hand out the service pins that we've had for a little while. So we've chosen that day to kind of have that event. So the 5 of you are invited to Town Hall. It'll be at the fire department. It's not a public event, it's an employee event, but we'll do that after we do our, or during our lunch break for the file cleanup. For those who are wondering, the file cleanup is how we minimize our needs for storage. There's a retention of records schedule that the Secretary of State publishes, and there are certain records you only have to keep for a certain number of years, and whenever we pass a year on those sets of records, we hire a shredding company to come in, and we load out all the boxes because we have very, very limited storage. So that's a good day for everybody. Everybody wears, blue jeans, and it gets a little messy. So that's why we like to close to the public, because everybody's dusty and it's running around. So, and then in terms of other announcements, I think paving on Converse Street, which was supposed to be, we were told it was going to be next week. It's now, I think, going to be pushed back at least a week, based on some changes in work. And when I have a more firm date, we will get that word out to the board and post something on the town's Facebook page and website. That's all I got.
Okay. All right, great. Is there any other announcements from anyone on the select board? Okay, great. So we can move to resident comments, if we have any of those this evening. No? I guess the only comment I would have is that Richard's not here. That's unusual. So we'll miss him. Any select board comments before we get any further? No? Nothing here? Okay. So we have a few minutes before the liquor license hearing that starts at 7:10. So I guess we could start with the town manager reports.
Sure.
You get 7 minutes.
Yeah. Do you want to maybe do some of the other vote items out of sequence? Maybe do the block party requests and not the presentations, obviously approve minutes, and do some of take that stuff out of order versus having me get started and then stop.
And then have to stop. Okay, yeah, that's true. A couple of minutes. All right. So we could start with, we need an approval of the minutes of September 5th. Then you have a
I
motion?
move we approve the minutes of September 5th, 2017.
Second?
Second.
Okay. And we'll just call for a vote, right? Okay, all those in favor? Great. Okay.
I abstain.
2 abstentions.
And one abstention, or 2 abstentions, right, yes. Okay, and then the next thing would be the preliminary vote for the LHS bond, right? We could do that, and then that has to be proposed
Why don't
by
we,
our
I don't,
clerk.
Paul's not here yet, so why don't we go to
Okay.
block parties?
All right. But our clerk will be presenting that motion, right?
I'll be signing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. So block party approval, first would be for Brittany Road on October 1st. Do we have a
Yeah.
motion to,
I'm just trying to find out the rain date there. Hold on. I think there was one. Oh, there. Yeah, I'll move approve a block party for October 1st, 2017 for Brittany Road with a rain date of October 22nd.
Okay, any, a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? Okay, approved. And the next would be one for block party for Greenacre Avenue on October 8th.
Yeah, I'll move we approve a block party for Greenacre Avenue on October 8th with no rain date per their request.
Okay, and second?
Second.
All those approve? Okay. And then we have another Greenacre Avenue, October
Yeah.
31st Halloween party.
Yeah, I'll move we approve the block party for October 31st on Greenacre with no rain date per their request.
Okay,
Second.
second? Any discussion? They said 300 people. I think they
That's
get
minimum.
more than that. That's a great party. Okay, all those in favor? And then we have another for Crestview Circle, September 24th.
Yeah, I'll move we approve the block party for Crestview Circle on September 24th with no rain date per their request.
Second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? That's my birthday. I may crash that party. Let's just say.
In full disclosure, it's my street, but I submitted the application on behalf of the people who are planning the block party. My wife is the block captain, so.
Block captain. Okay,
You can
good.
see how that goes, right?
Oh,
Tom,
there may be
it's
further discussion now.
Yeah, it's BYOB, by the way, just saying.
Okay, well, you're not looking for a one-day liquor license, so we'll vote on this. All those in favor? Okay, great.
While we're at it, if you want to, we can approve the one-day liquor license for the St. Mary's Guild
Yes.
for their fall meeting and social on September 19th, 2017.
All right, and do we have a second on that?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor? Okay, approved. All right, well, we just have 2 minutes left, so I just wanted to mention something that I thought was pretty good. It was in the fire department's report, and they talk in here about there was some mechanical issues with the one of the ambulances, and the person who coordinates all the maintenance is a Captain Zinnerek, and he had been monitoring the anomalies in the engine oil samples for this vehicle. And when the engine went bad, he contacted the manufacturer, and they're going to replace the engine. It would have cost us $35,000. So that is really good. Now, I guess we pay $1,700 for this, transmission and oil analysis program or something that does that. But you could see that this was really money well spent, to save the town $35,000. Yes.
So briefly, I sent the board an email today about an ambulance that we're scheduling for replacement.
Mhm.
That's not this one.
Okay.
The motor went bad on our newer ambulance, so it's extended the life of that ambulance for quite a while. The one that we're looking to, that we'll have to have a discussion maybe at the next meeting to replace, is the old ambulance.
Okay, well, good. So we are right about 10 after. I think we can start. Do we have to have a motion to start the liquor license hearing?
Yep, I move we open the liquor license hearing.
Second.
Okay. All those approved? Vote? Aye, okay. So we'll begin this liquor license hearing. If you could just introduce yourself and
Certainly.
we'll start this process.
Good evening. Thanks for having us. Daniel Kelly, I'm attorney for the applicant. My address, my office is 33 Mulberry in Springfield.
Okay.
And this is,
I'm Jeanette Norman. My business address is 115 State Street, Springfield, Mass.
Okay.
and I don't know where the most appropriate place to put this, but I
Stick it right in front of the
Right in
table,
front?
Dan, yeah.
Okay.
So we can all see if you lean it against the table.
How's that? All right. This is an application for an alcohol license for a new restaurant. For a location that's probably familiar for a lot of you, this is the old Hukilau location. This is an application for a brand-new restaurant there. The applicant here next to me is no stranger to the restaurant business. This will be their 4th restaurant that they run. They run 3 other restaurants in the area. And so they have the opportunity to have already opened and successfully managed 3 other restaurants, none of which have ever had any issue with the ABCC of this state. Of the ones in the Connecticut area have never had any problems with the Connecticut analogous branch of the ABCC. They also have the ability now to tap talented staff members who they have shown to the management group to be worthy of working as a manager. I have someone here who is right with behind me, is a proposed manager. You see in your paperwork. He's also no stranger to the restaurant business. He's been in it his entire life. He's actually been on the manager of a establishment before for about a year up in Northampton, the Spoletos, the old Spoletos up there years ago. He's been a server, he's been a manager, and he currently works for the restaurant group in 2 of their 3 current restaurants. So this is someone who's well-versed in management of personnel as well as alcohol. He is tip certified. Everyone who handles liquor at the establishment will be tip certified. We know we submitted a proposed menu and proposed floor plan, and we have in front of you a larger mock-up of the proposed floor plan with some renderings of what it may look like inside.
Okay. I don't know if anyone wants to start with questions. I was just concerned that's a outdoor dining area?
There is a small patio area, yes, sir.
And so that is between the main building and the Hukilau, and what was the Hukilau? It's in that little alleyway, is that where that is?
Between the main building and the post office.
In the main building and post
Yes.
office? Okay, that's what I thought, okay. And it's...
Not
'cause-
proposing any entertainment out there, any amplifiers, nothing. It'll simply be an outdoor dining area.
Okay,
The focus here is obviously on food, not alcohol. This is a restaurant, not a bar.
yeah, okay.
You won't be able to sit there and drink all day. This is some place to come and eat.
All right, but that would be a new eating space. They didn't have anything outdoors.
They did not have an outdoor
Yeah,
space, correct?
so, okay. I'll turn over to...
Seems to be the trend nowadays. A lot of diners like the outdoor experience during the good weather. Something they're incorporating here.
Yeah, that's gaining some momentum in town. I don't know, I know there were some concerns regarding the application.
The
and some
address.
discrepancies, I know that you'd heard from our...
We have, and I mean, I think I prefer to, here, one of the issues is the landlord, first of all, taking the address, for those of you who may not know, the landlord's demise it as 813, whereas before it was always 827. Having had this issue before, I think it's better to apply for the exact address that's on the lease, because I don't think you'll get through the initial cursory review by the ABCC investigator, because they'll just say, hey, look, you don't have a control of the demise premises, and therefore you'll just get knocked on its merits. So having had this issue a couple times before, I think it's better to put it down the exact issue as how the landlord puts it when we get to ABCC, since they actually give the licenses out. I can kind of explain it to him and work that out with them. I'm sorry.
I think we're the ones who give the license out.
Oh, you do. I meant
Just like-
ABC has final
Okay.
approval.
Okay.
Didn't mean to
Wanted to
usurp
make
your
a comment.
authority by any means.
All right. And then the other thing is the square footage on the floor plan. Was that included to us? And
I think it's 4,000 square feet.
Did it include the outdoor?
I believe the 4,000 square feet includes the outside portion, yes.
Including outside?
Yes. There's going to be extensive renovations. We've submitted the financials as well. I forgot to mention that. As you can see, the proposed renovations are going to be extensive in there and be rather costly. This is a significant investment. They're looking forward to putting a great restaurant in your town.
Mhm. And let's see, a certificate of inspection was supposed to be signed by the building commissioner and the fire department. And what's the status of that? Nothing's been turned in, to my understanding?
I don't know of any inspection. Is there anything to inspect?
There's nothing to inspect yet. I think they have to do that before they pick their license up, should you vote positively.
Okay.
Because it's just
It's a shell right now.
it's a shell. I mean, they're
Yeah.
as you can see, they're
So not much to
going to.
inspect.
Yeah,
There
they're-
will be a lot to inspect once it's all put
Right,
together, I
yeah.
see. But the,
ABCC will come out to inspect.
To do a site inspection
So
too,
there
yeah.
has to be something for them to inspect.
Correct. They can inspect this premises. I mean, we have to, obviously, it's a significant undertaking to expend this money. They certainly didn't want to do that until they got approval from yourselves.
Okay, yes, Mark.
I guess my comment is that this application seems awfully premature, and maybe not awfully is not the right word, but it certainly seems premature given the fact that, I mean, I've been doing this for 7 or 8 years, and generally when we get applications, we have had an inspection by our building commissioner. Usually we do have more of a complete entity, so it just seems to me that this is a little bit prior to what we thought. Mr. Lucusa's gone over a couple of concerns that clearly were pointed out to us, whether it's what address are we giving this to, but more importantly, what's the name of the restaurant? We've got 3 different names on 3 different applications.
Well,
And what the way I read it is that, there was a Republic, which was on the application, Woodfire, that's on the drawing, and Artisan Pizza on the lease.
Correct.
So we've got 3 different applications with 3 different names.
Well,
And that's what I'm saying. From my perspective, until all this stuff meshes, and I know that sounds bureaucratic, but that's what liquor licenses are about.
absolutely.
In my opinion.
I agree. The name is the one on the actual liquor application, which is the Republic. That's the DBA that the restaurant will be seeking to operate
So,
under.
but then the lease doesn't match the application,
Well,
and clearly the drawings we have, which are legally filed with this, which are different from what we're seeing tonight,
No, I think the renderings are the same, though.
it didn't look the same to me, but
Yeah.
more importantly, because
They are.
there was I mean, I can show you what we've got.
Yeah, I think I went over it as
and-
well.
But the names are different. So I've got this problem with bureaucracy here. It's my opinion.
Is there anyone else on the board have anything to?
I mean,
add
these
to
are the
that,
things
or-
I was gonna raise too. I mean, the
Yeah.
names don't match up.
I can certainly go back to the landowner and see if they can allow us to change the DBA in the lease.
Okay, that's, Marie?
That we're not in control of, but.
I think these are things that can be worked out. This is a huge investment that you're making in the town, and I can understand them wanting to be able to be sure that this board is going to grant a liquor license before this type of investment is put in that place, which is what's going to be required. So I think it's a wonderful project you're bringing town, and I appreciate it, and I think we should work with them in regards to doing business. I think the main issue here is this a reputable company that really feels strongly on handling a liquor license responsibly? And you appear to have the experience, and insisting that your manager comes in and you're going to be tips served. I'd like us to be able to work out the details on this.
Well,
to be
thank you.
able to
I really
move
appreciate
forward.
you saying that. That's
Yeah.
very kind of you. My family lives in this town. My son goes to the Long Meadow School system. So my reputation is in this town. So that means a lot. And we certainly are going to spend an exorbitant amount in making quite a large investment into the town where we live and love to be here. This will, as Attorney Kelly said, this will be our 4th restaurant. So we're certainly not new to the business whatsoever. And we just want to make it, a really nice place for the town to enjoy, for families. It's not something that I'm interested in being disruptive in terms of, I know when people hear about a liquor license, they have concerns. It's not a late night crowd. It's not anything of that vein whatsoever. I just want to assure you of that. Anything that in terms of names or anything, I'm sure we're certain that we can work that out to make sure that everyone is comfortable. This, if you walk into it, it's just one big empty box. It is stripped to the core. And we are going to, put in probably 7 figures in terms of getting it to where it should be, that we'd all be proud of to be in the town. Because right now, it's an eyesore. I go by it every day. I go to the post office. I do business here. So that's what our intention is.
Okay.
Do you
Any
think we
other-
can work on, Stephen, do you have any idea on how we can fix the
I
details
don't.
It
on
can all
the
be
application?
subject too.
Yeah,
right?
I don't, but I have some other concerns and I've been to some of the restaurants. I agree, they're nice, but I have some concerns that I want to just mention before we get too far down the line. I mean, to some extent, I agree. I think that we're not accustomed to getting liquor license applications this soon in the process. Normally, there's due diligence that goes ahead of that, but that's neither here nor there. Do you know if the Hukilau was pre-existing non-conforming or operated under a variance for parking? Because I think if we looked at our parking formula tables and the amount of square footage they had, there probably was not the right number.
I would probably think, I doubt they had a variance. I think that's still, I would think probably.
Pre-existing non-conforming.
I think they'd have to be.
But the only reason I
I
mentioned
would
that.
defer to you, but that would be my suggestion.
Well,
yeah.
the only reason I mention it is because when something is vacant for a year, it loses
Yeah.
the use under our bylaws. And I don't know if you have talked to the zoning board of appeals, if you're going to need a variance or site plan review. I mean, there's no change in the site plan, but you maybe because of the level of work, maybe look for a waiver, especially with the subdividing the space, and then. Like I said, a variant, like if you're gonna need a variance for parking, I guess I'd want to see that before I even went for a liquor license, because if you go ahead and spend the money and process the liquor license, and then you can't get the parking you need.
We look forward to applying in front of the ZBA.
I don't know if you're gonna have to, I don't know enough about,
Well-
but I'm pretty sure you may.
I think it's a possibility, yes.
Yeah. Like I said, I don't know what the answer is, but we should probably figure that out.
I would suspect prior existing.
Yeah.
Well, I had another question. This large white area in the bottom left-hand corner, is that where the bar area? What is that? It's blanked right now.
I think there's just another
Yeah.
other tenant.
Yeah.
Okay,
They were
future tenant.
dividing the space.
You're dividing that space, you're not going to use the whole space? So, yeah,
Space?
the big white area.
Right
that
here?
one. Yeah, what is?
That's the other space. That's where it's subdivided.
and
That's the other half of the Hukilau.
Okay, so
So we're
that
only
is,
taking a portion of it.
you're just taking a portion,
Correct.
not the whole area?
Correct, yes.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yes, so this will be another tenant, perhaps, I don't know.
Okay, but you won't be using that, okay.
Correct.
And the, so is there like a regular bar area
Right here.
there? That's where that is?
Yep.
Okay,
And here's the entrance.
there's the
Just to
entrance.
be, the kitchen is in the rear.
Okay.
The
And
post
kitchen
office
in
would
the
be
back.
over here.
Yep. And that, yeah, all right, great. Thank you.
Sure.
That's a creative way to do it. Now, the other thing is, there's the liquor liability insurance, and I don't exactly know, where things stand with that. Is that something that you were able to get at this point? Or do you have that?
Not before some more of the construction has gone through. Obviously, that's something we have to provide before we could pick up the license, should it go through favorably, yeah.
Okay,
No carrier will write it until there's some more construction done.
yeah, okay. Well, all right. Any other questions?
No, it seemed to be there's a lot of questions
Yeah,
that, like Mark was saying, there's a lot of requirements that haven't been met so far.
We
Yeah.
look forward, I tell you, if it's your purview to hold off on this, we'd ask you to vote favorably tonight. I think the application is appropriate to move forward, but should you have some questions about that, I can certainly come back the next general meeting and have, talk to the landlord and see if they'll allow us to change the lease and change the DBA in the lease.
yeah. Well,
I won't have the insurance information worked out because the carriers won't write until there's some more construction done on it.
yeah, I think
And I
you
can certainly
can,
work with the town regarding the parking issues.
yeah, I think you can sense from the board members that we'd like to have a clean
have some requirements in
application,
there. I
everything
understand.
matching, no
I
confusion
understand.
about
They-
names.
Since they don't own they don't own the premises, so they're under, they're working, the landlord is having certain requirements, and they're having
Yeah.
to do that to fulfill their obligation, so.
Okay, Mark, yeah,
Tom, I agree. I think, as I said, I thought it was premature, and Mr. Crane's comments are pretty cogent only because it's become obvious from previous situation this year that the ZBA and there's parking don't necessarily agree with the select board. It would really be a shame or the planning commission, and we said, yeah, well, you could get a license subject to, and you put in all this effort, and then there is no variance. But I also want to point out that on the application, it says patio deck, outdoor, total square footage area, it says NA. So if we were to vote tonight, that would not be authorized as part of your liquor license.
I'll have that.
And again, that's all part of this inconsistency, because that's the application itself, even though the lease says there is a a patio.
I'll have
But-
the architect supplement that.
Okay, but again, that's the application that we've got.
Mhm.
I don't know if anybody else saw that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's under, there's eight or nine items are listed
Right.
as.
Mhm.
Go ahead, Mary.
Yeah, I'd just like to be able to list exactly what we're still looking for, so they don't come back in a couple of weeks or a month,
Mhm.
and then we say, oh, well, we're not happy with that. So it's the square footage in the patio, it's the address, it's, the other expectation was,
The consistency between
the names.
the application for the liquor license and the lease, I think.
the names, but we, as they explained, they won't get the insurance until they get the approval completed. Was there anything else that, you mentioned the parking, we wanted to make sure that's
It's really,
clear.
what you need is a zoning determination.
Yeah. So anything else missing on the application that the select board will be looking for?
There's a list.
That's
Yeah.
the list?
Yeah.
Okay. And they have a copy of that?
Does that list, Richard, say about the patio
Yeah.
difference? Okay.
Yeah.
It does mention, well, you just put it down, right? Patio's not in application?
Yeah, it's not on the
Okay.
application.
So is there anything else on that
Well,
list?
it's not that it's
So-
not on the application. The application specifically excludes a patio.
Right, excludes it. Well, that's what I meant, the square footage for that was not shown. Yeah,
Square footage
there's
is listed,
eight, there's 10 items.
Did you write zoning determination on there?
No,
Put
so
the-
that's
keep it down on the
11
front.
items,
Mhm.
zoning determination.
So if we could just get that to them, and then if there's anything else, I don't
Yeah.
want to have another surprise in a month if anyone sees anything else.
Right.
I wonder
Great.
why
Yeah.
the landlord has a different address than what the hookah.
Because they want that other part to have.
Oh, to
The
use
other
that
address,
other
perhaps.
address number?
That's what I'm,
Yeah,
I'm
there'll be another
thinking.
tenant in
Fit
there.
yeah,
in.
that's what I'm thinking, so
And
it's
if they're
something
giving
I'm,
this one
They don't,
813, then 827 is the
but
next
don't we
one.
determine?
I thought we did. I thought we determined addresses, only because people have come to us to determine addresses. It's really strange that the landlords are sitting down. I don't know, Stephen. I had always thought it was the post office, but they deferred to us, didn't they? Remember it?
No, there's, the addresses are really done, ultimately, the building inspector assigns them based on, we have a map, the streets with little hash marks every 10 feet or whatever it is, and wherever the hash mark lines up with the front door, that's the number you get. There are a few cases where there aren't hash marks, or it's a little more ambiguous, and then we have to kind of
Why
guess.
did Brooks come to us? Whatever that was down in the Enfield line.
Oh, but that was a street name, not a street address.
No, the house, they wanted their street to be,
Right.
their house to be number
But the
one or
select
number
board,
11 or something.
the select board can ultimately assign the
Oh,
address,
okay.
but Paul Healy does
Send
it
it to
administratively when it's
I
a
mean,
clear
I'd rather it be
cut.
done administratively.
Yeah.
That's why it's strange that that one
Um,
came to us.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I don't, like I said, I think the first I saw this was when the application came in, so we didn't really have a chance to kind of connect and talk through what are the steps in the process and things we need to line up, so.
Well, with all the items that are noted on there, it's a fairly straightforward checklist of being able to correct the deficiencies that are noted. Pending the correction of all the deficiencies, what's the timetable for your restaurant?
The end of the first quarter in 2018.
Okay, 2018. Your menu looks nice.
Thank you.
Yes,
I
it looks
appreciate
nice.
that.
I'd like to
I'll
see
take
it
away
open.
one positive, that's
Yeah,
good.
you know, I'd like to have it open right now. but,
Me too.
Yeah, the menu
Yeah.
looks nice.
Yes, Marie?
And I really support the project. I think it looks wonderful. It'd be a great
Thank you.
addition to the town, and, we have meals tax, so it
That's
really
right.
will help our
True.
budget coming
Yes,
along. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anything that...
Nothing to be gained by an empty shell.
Right, and we'll be glad to work with you. And
I'd
I
appreciate
think
that.
Debbie's really got a...
Well, we certainly want to
Great
work with
place.
you.
Can I just ask for one other clarification? And the intent isn't to be difficult and that you not take away something, I mean, the positive is, people want to get this done, but we really do need to get, like,
Not a
if
problem.
we had passed this tonight, you wouldn't be allowed to have a patio. So let's get it right. And I turn to your attorney and say, how come things don't agree? Don't blame us, blame the people who filed the paperwork.
I'll take it. We're not
Why
blaming
things
you,
didn't-
sir. No
We're not
blame
blaming
you.
anyone.
But that's the way it came across. But the
Not-
other
not
blaming
comment-
anyone.
the other comment I'd just like to know about is hours, and I only say that because it came up at the last liquor application. The ABCC has what I'll call standard hours or minimum hours, and if it's anything other than that, it needs to be on the application. So I just ask you to look at that. If it's a restaurant, a dinner restaurant, or something, you may want to go outside whatever the ABCC's hours are. So just take a look at that.
Right.
Or not, and we're not encouraging you to do that.
Right. But you got 11 to midnight Is that what you have?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's pretty standard.
Pretty standard.
And Mondays off.
I think we had to extend.
It'll be a
for,
7-day-a-week restaurant.
Yeah, I think,
I probably want to watch
7
the
days?
last liquor license and the discussion
It'll be open
time.
7 days.
7 days?
So you
yeah,
get an idea.
because-
because you
especially
talked
on
about-
Sunday, because that
Yeah.
was the issue with the last liquor license. Just,
It had to be
I
extended.
assume it's
We
in
had to
the
adopt
minutes of
extended
our
hours. Yeah.
meeting for approval. It's just
Right.
the, what is it, the kitchen restaurant? So you can find out what the hours are for that.
Okay.
All right, so I may have read that wrong, but I thought it said it was Tuesday through Sunday, and it was closed Monday.
No.
In the thing, okay.
No.
So
But
maybe.
we'll take a look at that and make sure that's
Yeah,
accurate.
yeah, like Mark said, just have it clear on all the papers, so then when we move forward on this, there won't be any surprises later, we say, oh, wait a minute, we didn't know this. And we have not had a lot of difficulty with folks, serving liquor and having restaurants, in our town, and I see that there's an entertainment district in a sense, and I'm actually trying to get the town to consider putting a crossing, a way to cross Williams and towards that end of town, maybe in front of the bank, going over to the other bank, but it would connect all
That makes sense.
the restaurants, because people are going to be, walking around, and I think it's going to be exciting, and it's just a matter of time till people discover what's going on, and maybe your restaurant will be the key to that, so, all right, so I guess we...
A couple more questions real quick.
Oh, please.
Because people are watching. People want to know what you're going to do with the restaurant.
I know, I can't walk in there without somebody asking me.
I'd be remiss if I didn't ask a couple of prying questions.
Go right ahead.
Is there any chance that there would be anything other than an order menu? Would there be a possibility of Sunday buffets in this operation, or do you have any thoughts online?
If you notice in here, which I think is a little different to any restaurant in our town, is that we're going to have a private dining room. You won't find that at Max Burger. It's just too small. So we will have that. And we have talked about doing Sunday brunch. Chris and I certainly have talked about that. And doing things, because I don't think there's really anything for breakfast besides the kitchen.
Right.
But that's kind of a limited kind of grill fare. So we do see, and we do recognize that there is an opportunity for that. But we're really excited about being able to have private dining space for people to host birthday parties, showers, bar mitzvahs, special occasions, holiday things of that nature.
Yeah, it seems like there's a need, and we just don't have a restaurant that fills that need at this
No,
point.
you're right, because you definitely need that extra space.
Right.
And it needs to be laid out from the bottom up.
Yeah. Two more quick ones.
Sure.
Capacity? How many people can you
Right
sit?
now, 168 seats, and that would include bar
Yeah.
stools.
Are you at liberty to talk about your price point?
I would hate to say that because it's just not finalized.
Okay.
I mean, we're not gonna be something you haven't seen. I don't think any of my restaurants are over the top, and this one won't be either.
Okay.
It will be affordable. You'll be available if you wanted to dine in or take out. I know folks are very, very busy, and they like that opportunity. So we're going to provide it.
Great. Any other?
Yeah, the only thing, and Attorney Kelly, just a quick comment, that if you've really got a drawing like that, it ought to replace what we've got, because what we've got is a blank thing that shows one bed.
Right, it's this.
Which
Yeah,
shows
it's
a
little-
bar sitting
it's-
right in the middle, or something sitting right
Yeah,
in
it's
the middle
the,
of the restaurant.
this is the architect's a little more expanded view. It's the same one.
If you
so
got it and you think that's likely to move that direction, it'd be far better to put that,
I'll
in my
put the
opinion, on.
expanded one on.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
just got this in from the architect.
That's fine, but they just didn't jive.
Yeah, I mean, the architect is the one who's supposed to prepare the zoning determination.
Correct.
And that is based entirely on the number of seats you have.
Yep.
So we're gonna need that anyway. And like I said, I think I'll echo the sentiments of the board. Like I said, I'm a patron as well. And, so it's not an issue of concern that the restaurant won't be high quality. It's just making sure that a liquor license isn't tied up in a project that may not meet other approvals at other regulatory bodies.
And we're happy to meet those approvals.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. We certainly want to work with you guys. We want you guys to be patrons, so
Absolutely.
it's only in our best interest.
All right, so then what we will do is we will,
Yeah, I'd
Yeah.
like to move that we continue this hearing without a determination tonight. and then close the hearing.
Okay, do we have a second on
Second.
that? Okay. Any discussion on that? Okay, call for a vote. All those in favor?
And
Okay.
I guess Debbie will go ahead and transmit, what, maybe tomorrow? Oh, Stephen, she's going to transmit, I guess, the list of stuff that the board had.
To the attorney's office, to Christina.
Yep.
Okay, great. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Uh, Sorry it isn't over, but we'll be
Can you squeeze it
smoother
into
next time.
2017?
I'm telling you,
Look forward to being back here soon.
Okay, great.
Thank
Thank you for coming in. And, okay, so with that closed, we can now move into the, we have an awful lot of folks here.
Fine, why don't you just jump?
Maybe we should go into dementia friendly? Yeah, before we do that.
Okay.
So we will move on to the Dementia Friendly Initiative. The Adult Center Director here, Jim Layden, if you could just step up and we're looking
Jim, how
forward
many
to
seats
your
you gonna need to make the presentation?
presentation.
Right, we can just kind of wave over.
We'll just chime in.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're okay.
The problem with chiming in is that people at home can't hear.
Oh.
So,
Right.
and that's the only reason. But if you want to stretch a microphone,
Or you can just share that.
I mean, we don't have any
Yeah, pull a
problem with
If you pull a
Chime
chair
in.
over, you can
Yeah.
use, the mics are pretty good at picking up sound.
Yeah, she'll do
Yeah.
statistics.
Will that make-
No, you got
I think we're okay.
That's great.
Okay, so if I could ask each of you to introduce yourself for the people at home who are watching.
My name is Jim Layden. I am the director for the Long Meadow Council on Aging and Adult Center.
My name is Mary Ann Shelb, and I am the Community Relations Director at Roots House Assisted Living right here in town.
Okay,
My name is Heather Jagodowski. I'm the program coordinator with the Alzheimer's Association Springfield chapter.
okay. So, you're here to talk about,
So I just need each person to get one each of those, is that okay?
Um,
All right. We have
you know,
handouts.
okay,
So
great.
they're gonna send those out. I want to first thank you for the time and the consideration. We're here tonight to let you know of an exciting new initiative that we've come forth with, and it's Dementia Friendly Long Meadow. For the past 2 years, I've been in town and very anxious to get this going, and I will have to say that once you guys appointed Jim Layden for the Council on Aging, I was pretty excited. I've worked with him in the past, and I knew at this point timing was good. In initiating this endeavor, I knew we had to have a good core team, so I've got the core group, which is myself, Jim, and then also Tori Dearborn from Glen Meadow. We consider ourselves elder care specialists. We're all members of the Western Mass Elder Care Professional Association. I myself am the co-chair of the Walk to End Alzheimer's. I've been on the committee for the past 8 years, and I've been in the field for the past 20. We have some great folks joining us. Heather Jagodowski from the Alzheimer's Association, of course. Darlene Francis from the Wernick Adult Day Health Program. Julie Moulton, of course, is the chair of the Long Meadow Council on Aging Board. And then we've got resident and community member Judy Yaffe, who's not only a certified dementia practitioner, but she's also worked in the elder care business, specializing in Alzheimer's and dementia for quite some time, and also on the board for the Council on Aging as well. In front of you, you'll see the dementia-friendly essentials. Literally, there are 4 phases. And before, I don't want you to get nervous, there's nothing you guys have to do other than say, hey, this is a great idea. There's 4 phases. We convene, we engage, we analyze, and we act. Currently, right now, we're in the middle of analyzing and engaging. We want to know, how do we feel, how aware do we feel the community is? How much training do we feel is necessary? And when and how do we begin? So just for the record, we've started to just outreach because it is something that's so prevalent. There are 4,498 residents in Long Meadow age 60 and over. In my community alone, in our assisted living, there's 6 residents in their 70s in our secure locked dementia unit. And we have 3 residents under 70. Now, there's more statistics. Actually, Heather, I'll leave that to you.
Great, thank you. So in the United States alone, more than 5 million people live with Alzheimer's disease. Someone will develop Alzheimer's disease every 66 seconds. 1 out of 10 people over the age of 65 and 1/3 over the age of 85 have the disease. The greatest known risk factor for Alzheimer's disease is increasing age. Most individuals are the age of 65 and over. The likelihood of developing Alzheimer's doubles about every 5 years after the age of 65. After the age of 85, the risk reaches nearly 32%. It is projected by the year 2030, the segment of the U.S. population ages 65 and older will increase to 74 million Americans, and that'll make up 20% of the total population. Today, it is the 6th leading cause of death in the United States. It has no current cure, treatments for symptoms, but combined with the right services and support, we can make life better for millions of Americans living with Alzheimer's disease, and this is a great initiative that the Alzheimer's Association completely supports. There are 21 towns that are going to become certified. We're hoping that this town will be one of them. And the goal of the Alzheimer's Association is in the next 3 years that the state of Massachusetts will be the first dementia-friendly state within the United States. The cost of this disease is going to reach billions. This year, there's 17,000 people just in the state of Massachusetts that are the ages of 65 to 74. 85 and over is 58,000 people. And over 5 million Americans are living with Alzheimer's. As many as 16 million will have the disease by 2050. The cost of caring for those with Alzheimer's and other dementias is at an estimate of $259 billion in the year 2017, and the number is expected to increase to $1.1 trillion by mid-century. So this is something that towns like this one need to get ahead of, because the baby boomer population is getting older and we're going to see more cases of Alzheimer's and dementia.
Early onset, unfortunately, is becoming more and more prevalent. And what we want and what we're looking for is when you're at the grocery store or at a restaurant or at a bank and you see someone in line, maybe with a few items and ready to pay, and they don't realize they need to pay. And you're kind of looking at them, you know, maybe somebody's getting annoyed. And we want some people to be educated enough and aware enough to say, hey, wait a minute, I recognize some of that. That, you know, maybe there's somebody we could call and be a little bit more compassionate to them as opposed to ridiculing them. I've had a lot of experience, whether it's on the board or personal experience with Alzheimer's and dementia, and it gets very hard to deal with, whether it's a family member or the person themselves, to make people more aware. Business owners, restaurant owners, like the ones that just left. I'm sorry that they really aren't here, because it is something that we should become more and more aware of, because it makes it just a happier place to be. If we become dementia friendly, it's something where people aren't afraid to be here and or stay here if there's a diagnosis. You know, there's places like, you know, you've got Ruth's House, you've got Glen Meadow, you've got folks already living here with the disease. We want to be as aware as possible. We will have a kickoff in January. The Dementia Friendly Massachusetts chapter director, Emily Kearns, will come and actually speak at the kickoff. We'll let you know when it is. We're looking at maybe you just put it in a newsletter. Maybe you put it on the TV, the public television. We're looking at it not costing a whole lot. You know, our facilities are more than willing to make copies. There's facilitators that are ready to facilitate. We've got the program director right here. We've got Judy being a certified dementia specialist and practitioner.
Spaces within town.
And right, so we could host, you know, at the senior center itself, at Glen Meadow. We've got a lot of places and a lot of people very passionate about it, and we're just looking for your blessing. That way there, if somebody comes up to you, you could say, yes, we're aware of the initiative, and we absolutely back it. And it's a backing of just, you know, moral support. We're not looking for financial support. It's just something that we really think the town should be involved with.
Okay. Yeah.
I just have some questions,
Sure.
Mary Ann. It's a great program, clearly. You know, we've been asked to to designate the town as a bunch of different things, and
Sure.
usually they come with, well, it'll only require that you such and such, like, complete streets, well, all your roads have to be designed. You're not asking the town for anything here, it's just an awareness.
Correct.
And and I mean, obviously, I assume there's programs at the senior center, gym,
Right.
Right.
and adult center that you'd be doing,
Yeah.
but it's not like it's changing our building codes, or it's
Nothing.
changing our, or any
No,
of that.
so when you maybe go to build something new, just be aware that there could be somebody that has, dementia. So maybe make signs clearer. Simple things. The additions that we would make it wouldn't be costly. It just might be a different way to look at it.
Right. We would also be asking for town departments to be supportive of the initiative when it comes to certain trainings or any types of presentations that we might have, that we could include all the town departments for the buy-in for this project, and then the same thing from the restaurants, a lot of the local business owners. So it's definitely a collaboration from everybody within town to really educate and bring awareness. So I think with starting here with the support, we wanted to come to you with the initiative, kind of get this going, but then it is going to take a partnership from everybody within town.
Just one other quick question. So there was a comment that the town will become certified. What does that mean?
So it's not right. So it's not a test that you have to pass and you get 100 and then you get a certification. It really is an ongoing training.
Okay.
It's going to be something that we continually do. The Alzheimer's Association, what they'll do is I guess you can explain it. We'll get to a certain point where we'll be considered dementia friendly.
Absolutely.
Okay.
There's just certain goals to meet regarding education. And again, the education is free. It's of no cost. The Alzheimer's Association recently rolled out a program where they're educating police officers, and they're looking at educating firefighters and EMTs and other professionals in our communities to recognize when someone might have signs of Alzheimer's and dementia. Because again, the one thing about this disease is it doesn't discriminate. It doesn't matter your age, it doesn't matter your education, it doesn't matter your ethnicity. This disease does not discriminate. And we're going to see more and more cases of Alzheimer's and dementia. So really, when it comes to people moving to your community, if it's someone who might suspect that their spouse has Alzheimer's or dementia, I would rather move to a community that I know is going to treat my loved one with dignity and respect, and have an understanding that there might be something else going on with them and why we see certain behaviors.
And I think another thing, too, that's important is we're trying to create the community action plan specific for the town of Long Meadow. So there is definitely a unique spin that we are trying to do. It has been accomplished in many other surrounding towns, and we can use them as partners. I know that Westfield has completed it, Agawam, South Hadley, Ludlow, and West Springfield is all working on their status. So we have relationships with all of those cities and towns, but we are trying to present this initiative to be as unique to Long Meadow as possible.
Okay. Yeah.
It's just very slight snick of humor. If you've watched this board often enough, you would know that we're a dementia-friendly board.
We're nice to each other.
It is shocking what you're saying. I hadn't heard the stats. It's scary. That's
Yes.
exactly what it is. And it's creeping into our society at a phenomenal rate with baby boomers.
And I think part of the scariness of it is the stigma behind it. And people, especially of a certain age, don't really want to talk about it and maybe recognize it in themselves or in a loved one. It is a very challenging disease, to say the least. It's a very sad disease. But again, I really think that education is the key. And the committee for this town are some incredible players, and these are the folks that can make your community dementia-friendly and educate your community as well.
Yeah, I applaud your efforts. It's needed. We can't live without it. We have to educate.
Thank you.
We have to.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Jim, and I like what you were saying about, tailoring it to Long Meadow, because our needs could be a lot different than others. Like, we have a lot of folks who may be homebound and suffering with dementia. Their children are out of town, and they may need professional caseworkers who need to do a lot of the functions that family in the area might do. But, if we had those kinds of things set up. And when you talk about support, is that one of the things that you have?
Yes.
Every community is different, and that's
Yeah.
why it's town by town, because it is so different. And all the players are different, everything, the landscape, everything matters. So what we want to do, we also go to another group. It's Dementia Friendly Western Mass. And it's great because we could get a little bit more information, for the surrounding communities, but then we also can, how did they tailor it? How did they tailor it? We could bring that back, how can we tailor it? So it is something where if you see something or you think something, to mention it to us. So you've got in the dementia-friendly essentials, and then you've also got 3 contacts. Myself, Jim, and Tori would be the core members. If you have any questions or comments, please share it with us, because we can, establish that within the program itself.
Okay, but professional caseworkers to help out-of-town family members, would
There's
that be?
geriatric care managers. We're involving elder law attorneys. We're involving all the people that could possibly touch, whether it's CNAs or nurses, the healthcare professionals, the police, the EMTs, and then, like I said, even storefront owners. So it's going to run the gamut, and we're going to start approaching them. What we're hoping to do is train maybe the bosses, even just during a staff meeting, and then it'll be train the trainer. So we could train them, and they could bring a truncated version of their training to the staff, just so they could help. And it's ongoing because their staff could turn over. So we could go in and help with that, or if they feel comfortable, they can. There's something called the Virtual Dementia Tour that maybe as far as if we would ask you to do anything, we might ask you to do that. And it's a program that actually Judy and Tori are both privy to and part of, where you actually kind of walk and talk and see through someone with dementia. And it's very touching and very moving. And that might be something, if you actually go through it, to see what they experience. And it's very hard, and it gives you a different spin on how to talk to them and, how what their needs are.
Okay, Maria, I know you were,
Oh, I know you're talking education a lot, and you're talking about the employees and some of the businesses. Were you reaching out to the schools at all and the PTAs? Because I know there's a lot of problem with communication between the two groups.
Absolutely. I just actually met with an author at the Alzheimer's Walk, and we have a book that she wrote, and she's more than willing to read to the families of, like the kids specifically, it's a children's book, of the people with either mom or grandma might have dementia. And it's hard because they don't know how to talk to them anymore. Maybe they were very fun and now they don't seem fun. There's so many different changes that happen. So we're going to bring, I actually just brought that book to work today, and one of our residents was reading it and she loved it. So there's a lot of different ways we could reach different age groups. And yes, everybody's touched. Like she said, it does not discriminate. There's, if when I go to Rotary meetings or different meetings, a show of hands for the people touched with it personally. I mean, I'm just curious, personally for you guys, how many people do you know, or family members that have dementia?
yeah, family.
Right?
Yeah.
It's really, it's so prevalent.
Yeah. And we have a local cable television, Long Meadow Television, and would you have educational programs that could go on to that? Is that something you have planned?
There's a lot of programming. If you go to, and I didn't put that on the as a matter of fact on the bottom, so dfamerica.org. If you go to that website, there's a lot of things, trainings, handouts. There's a lot of things that we could put on the website right from that, our station right from the website. Lots of trainings, PowerPoints. We could actually even have maybe trainings that we tape. They could come and tape, and then they can broadcast. That would be wonderful if we could do that.
Yeah, well, that would be a good way to reach folks.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Stephen?
Yeah, Tom, thanks. Just briefly, I want to commend the panel, especially Jim, for putting this together and getting the town involved in it. I do think it's a great program, and Tom, I want to echo something that you just said that we've talked about. Isolation is the kind of one of the major unseen problems of our community, and when we end up confronting an issue that is really a result of isolation, it's exceptionally time-consuming. The laws that govern processes are still way behind the times, and and really don't really capture the prevalence and the timeliness that you need to act with. And so I think raising awareness to get into those situations before they become, sort of beyond hope or get stuck in the legal process is critical. And so I'm looking forward to, the discussions involving police, fire. Our fire department, because we run our ambulance service, is really often the front line of these situations, and then it's usually followed up by police. And the other thing that's heartbreaking is the number of financial scams that some older people have found themselves victims to. And it's not always a case of dementia, but that certainly doesn't help, especially people who are in kind of the early stages of it. And
They're confused.
Easily confused by people calling on the phone. And that there's a lot of that, more than I think people would really perceive for Long Meadow, which is, people feel is a safe community. So those are issues that we've been grappling with at the town really for a long time. So I commend them. There's a big need for it, and I think this really is just the tip of the iceberg, what you guys are doing. I think the more awareness you raise and the more you highlight the needs, the more we'll be looking to commit either personnel or other resources to help combat this.
Just to speak to a couple of the things that you said, as far as the people that are, at home and maybe more isolated, we're going to have what's called memory cafes. We're going to have four support groups. Let's start there. 4 support groups, one at my place, one at the senior center, one at Glen Meadow, and then we're hoping to maybe position another one at the library. And it's going to be a support group for both people with and the caregivers of. So it'll be a good place to start. And then we're going to get into memory cafes, where what it is it's just a place to gather of no pressure. It's not anything other than maybe the person with dementia and a caregiver or a loved one, family member, coming with them to just enjoy. It's a judgment-free zone, so to speak. And it'll get them a little bit more used to, like, hey, wait a minute, I'm not alone here. I've got somebody, wow, it might even be a neighbor, that has this. Because if it's more localized to Long Meadow, then they realize that it could be a neighbor. It could be somebody that they know. And to take the stigma of the embarrassment away, as opposed to, listen, this is happening and we can work on this together. So it is something that's one of our goals, to really have it where people are not isolated. The other thing you said, as far as, elders maybe getting financial abuse with their level of confusion, there's elder law attorneys that will do presentations and talk to them, so it'll be the person plus, again, a caregiver that will help. Listen, this is what to stay away from. Maybe a quick step, 2-step, 3-step. If somebody calls and they're looking for this, kind of signs to look for.
Yeah, actually, as I think about it, they have all these recovery from alcohol and substance abuse groups on television, it would almost be the same thing if there was a support group, on television, that people could see how caregivers struggle. They struggle every day, and
they think they're alone.
Yeah, and again, I think women have done a better job of getting support groups for themselves, and I think a lot of men suffer in silence, and so, I think that's another group that really needs some extra reaching out to.
Absolutely.
So, this sounds like a great initiative, and so I guess, I don't know what the board, if we need to do anything, but we will be open to talking with you again. I hope you'll come back and visit.
Absolutely. We'll bring you regular updates if you're interested. That would be great.
Did we say there was a resolution, or no? Not
Well,
yet.
I think there might be a resolution. It doesn't say it here. It did say, there's these 4 phases, and
Is there a do you guys like
Define.
like a resolution that says, we in the town of Long Meadow, whereas we know dementia is a growing problem, and whereas, and then now therefore be resolved that we are declaring that we are a dementia-friendly community, and blah, blah, blah.
Declaration? Yeah, I don't think we need that. I mean, I mean, it would be something, if you wanted to do that, to have a declaration where we say this is the initiative going forward. It could be something kind of fun to give a kickoff. The community members, the business owners, if they see that, they might get a little bit more jazzed about it and behind us a little bit better.
It gives you something to do a press event about and get
Absolutely.
a specific thing, and then
Sure.
if all of the communities do it, each one tweaks the language for their own community, but
Sure.
if there's a similar format, everyone can kind of like Tree City USA has a similar program. We Purple Heart community. I mean, like I said, as Mark noted, we do get asked from time to time to make a designation.
Absolutely.
And I think that would be something Jim and I can talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Once the phases are completed as well, the Alzheimer's Association will recognize this as a dementia-friendly community. So that would be listed on their websites and information.
And then at that point, maybe, presenting the certification to the board, maybe that would be something that we can, kind of make a big thing
And the
about too.
program length is what, 6?
Yeah,
So
maybe-
the program length, sorry, Jim was just, the program length, we're looking at about, they say 6 to 9 months to really get it going. In about a year, we should have certification. So we're thinking if we start in January, by the end of next year, we're hoping to have our certification. We'll have little stickers to put on all our windows. So we're pretty excited about it.
Okay, but something like Steve was saying, in January, when you have this kickoff, if we had a vote here, and if that would help you get a little more additional press for the kickoff, that might be a good time for you to come back, right?
That would be great. We could get you a date.
Yeah.
We'll make sure we get a date.
We've been talking about
to
a
you.
date and time for the kickoff, so yeah, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, so I think that would be one way we could help.
That would be much
So-
appreciated. Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, so I guess if that's it, well, thank you very much for coming, and we'll
Thank you
look
very much
forward
for
to seeing
having
you
us.
in a couple of months.
Thanks.
All right, thank you.
Can I make a recommendation? Maybe the packet that we received, you send to the chair of the school committee so they know what initiative and what's happening on our side. I sort of used to send some things last year to them, and this might be something they find interesting and know that it's happening.
Okay, that's a good idea. Good, school committee. Yes, because a lot of kids in school, are, again, struggling with dementia when they see the change in a grandparent, perhaps, and they don't understand fully, that might be something that should be included in health classes and, or, at different events, so,
I think it's,
Yeah.
they have a whole apparatus
yeah.
right across the hall that deals with these types of issues for students.
Mhm.
So I think it's just, I think it's pupil services is the department that you can go through, but we can coordinate that.
Oh, okay, all right, great.
Hey,
Okay,
Debbie, remind me, I guess I can transmit the information to the superintendent. That's probably a better way to do it.
all right. Now, we've covered a lot of ground. We do have we can either go to the town manager's report or the preliminary vote for the high school bond.
I think I care less about Paul's time than the consultant's time, because
Yeah,
one we own, the other one we're buying, so, I'm just kidding. Matt, so why don't if you guys don't mind, we can do the complete streets
Complete
presentation.
Streets? Okay, yes,
Andy
of
just
course.
stepped out, but this is Matt Chase from VHB, who's been working with us for quite a while, not only in the complete streets, but also did some preliminary work on our design for the Long Meadow Street intersections, and did some design work for us on Converse Street, so they've done a lot of
Let me
work
just
here in
hand that to you.
town.
You can-
Yeah.
Right,
I
yes.
was gonna say, it's a shame, couldn't get that a little smaller.
Yeah. I thought,
Okay.
Andy thought maybe, did the PDFs get circulated
did.
today? Oh, okay.
well,
They did.
welcome back, Matt.
Thank you.
I think the last time we discussed the stoplights at Converse and.
And we're still waiting for them to be installed, from what I
It's
understand.
coming close. I know, we're getting closer. We're getting closer. So,
And I think everyone knows Andy Carr, the town engineer.
okay, Andy.
Yes, good evening. Andy Carr, town engineer. Good evening. Matt, did you introduce yourself?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. And I'm probably going to give way to Matt, but I just want to, I have 2 copies here of our Complete Streets prioritization plan, which I simply want to hand out for you to look at during the meeting, and then I can email or make copies for you in the future.
That's we got from Matt Soltis earlier this afternoon.
Earlier this
Yes.
afternoon.
I sent you guys that late.
Unfortunately, I have 2 hard copies.
Okay, so that's what you just-
That's what I said a little while ago.
Yeah, just got it like 4:30.
Yeah, something like that.
Hot off the press.
Does everybody know, well, I think everybody's been here for a number of years, a couple years ago, in fact, almost exactly 2 years ago, the Select Board adopted a complete streets policy, which is a requirement of the Complete Streets program that we're working on right now, and that policy is in our bylaw, the Town of Long Meadow bylaw. That is the first step, or first tier of the Complete Streets program. There's 3 tiers. The second tier, which we're going to discuss tonight, is the preparation of a Complete Streets prioritization plan. We've retained VHB engineers to prepare that plan. The costs were covered by the Mass DOT. They gave us a grant for about $44,000 to prepare this prioritization plan. A lot of work has gone into it, a lot of collaboration between myself, the DPW, Stephen, you participated in this some.
Yes.
And the police department as well, particularly our traffic sergeant, Carl Mazzafaro. So with that, I'm going to let Matt take over, and he'll discuss the prioritization plan and anything else related to Complete Streets, and we can all take questions after this.
Perfect, thank you. So one of the first things that we did as part of this process was develop some base mapping and doing some research on existing conditions, understanding what the issues are, where there's a certain number of crashes, what are speed limits on certain roads, and those sort of things. And a lot of that stuff was presented graphically in the report that you have in front of you, and that was emailed to you earlier today. And we use that information just to kind of identify where there might be gaps in sidewalks, or the ability to resolve somewhere where there might be high crash locations and things like that. And then we did some field observations, and I lived in town for about 5 years, so I know the town fairly well. So we were able to kind of put together our list. At the same time, DPW and engineering and the police department and town manager's office put together kind of their list of things that issues and opportunities throughout the town. And then we had several different interactive meetings where we had kind of a board similar to this, a map, kind of marking up things and going through and identifying a variety of different projects. I will say that the engineering department did a great job. They created an extensive list of projects from past field work and efforts that they have done, and that was very helpful during the development of this plan. What we did is we ended up taking all this data and created an extensive spreadsheet, but didn't want to make it too complicated. So we came up with a couple thresholds to look at these projects in a manner that we want to rank them in an order of readiness. What can be constructed fairly easily without environmental permitting, right-of-way needs, where there's traffic concerns, high crashes and things like that. And we developed a matrix, and in that report that you have in front of you, when you get to the back, there's a couple spreadsheets, and there's one kind of towards the back. It looks a little scary, but it's pretty easy to kind of follow, but it's very detailed in the back here. And what this is it's basically we list the project description, the road that it's on, and then we categorize it on what type of project, whether it's a pedestrian project, a safety project, or a transportation project, bicycles and that sort of thing. And then we came up with a ranking, and there's a description in the back of this memo about the ranking, and we call it a readiness ranking. And
It's more kind of prepping the town to identify a list of projects that could be easily constructed depending on the amount of money that they get from DOT. So as part of this next phase, once the town hears back from DOT on the plan being approved, and when I say plan, there's a separate spreadsheet that's in color that was submitted to DOT that was just information relative to what they wanted to see. Once that's approved, the town has to follow up with a list of a project or a series of projects that they would like to pursue with $400,000. And then over the next 3 months, I think some point in December, they should make a notice or and advise the municipalities in the Commonwealth of who received money. There's no guarantee that you'd get $400,000 for this particular round. There'll be another round coming up in the spring. But we generated this list to come up with something that we know that is what are the top what could be the top project that could seek some of the money from this. If you got $100,000, what's that project? If you got $20,000, what's this project? If you got $400,000, well, what projects? And be able to be ready to tell DOT this is what we want to consider as part of our funding, because it's going to be a quick turnaround when they go to notify. I think if they notify you soon, then you have until I think October 2nd really to get what they call Tier 3 in. So Tier 1, as Andy was saying, was the policy that you wrote, approved, and adopted. Tier 2 is this plan where we identified more than enough projects for complete streets. And one of the goals that I had when we started this was not to just create a list of projects for the state to consider, but to have a list of projects that the town consider and kind of, pack off the list over the years as either part of maintenance projects, projects through the tip, like in Congress Street that we're moving forward, whether it's complete streets, if it's not this round, if it's the next round, or if you get something this round, maybe it's 2-3 rounds later, because this is supposed to be a continuous project program that's supposed to be eligible for funding, so you can redo your list and continue to get money. So there's about 60 projects here that have been identified in this plan that's documented. There's another 50 projects I think that we identified, but we decided not to include them in here because it would have been over 100 projects. It was a little bit too many projects. These were kind of the ones that were highest priority, I guess, so to speak. And so what we ended up doing was we ranked these, and then we identify a cost, and we put costs together, cost estimates for all 20 projects that are listed on the DOT. So DOT only looks for 20 projects to upload. There's 60 on our sheet, so at any given time when the town does a few more projects, they can take them off the list and put a few more back in. And this is all Excel-based and gave all that information to them. It's easy for DPW and engineering to cut, paste, and modify as you go through. I just got to mention, I guess, the top 3 or 4 projects that, and when I say the top 3 or 4 projects, I don't mean that these are the ones that would be the priority of the town, but it's more of the ones that could be easily constructed, readiness with low cost, or would meet the intent of the complete streets funding. But the first one was on William Street over by the Grassy Gutter and Meriwether Drive, which was a recent fatality. That was doing enhancements for the pedestrian crosswalk at the intersection over there. The next one was doing some intersection and roadway improvements and enhancements over on William Street at the community house, up at that intersection there. And then right out here, Bliss Road, sidewalk on the south side of the high school, and that was from Blueberry Hill Road to Grassy Gutter, kind of filling in that gap and that need over there. The fourth project is right out here again on Bliss Road. It's just the interaction between the fields in the high school, between the tennis courts and the entrance right out here, looking at bringing awareness to those crossings there, whether it's a enhanced rapid flashing beacon or other kinds of things that would be on the road that would bring awareness to more pedestrian activity to try to get people to slow down a little bit more. So.
Man, I had a question.
Yeah.
Because there's quite a number of these beacons identified in this list. And do we have any examples in town of what those would look like?
You will have 5, I think, on Converse Street that will be installed in the next...
but they haven't been put in place. Huh?
Oh yeah, Bay Path has them.
Faith has...
Bay Path has them installed. They installed them on their own, but they have those flashing strobes, right? That's similar.
Yeah. They're basically, it's a... And if you look, I think there's a picture of one on the board here. It's here. It's kind of small, but if you have it in there or in the PDF, you can zoom in on it. But it's basically a yellow sign, and it's a strobe light It alternates flashing, and it's double-sided, so you can see it from both directions.
Yeah, okay.
And it flashes. But there's going to be, there were some, I guess, temporary beacons out on Conver Street,
During the construction?
Burbank.
Burbank, and that was just before construction started. Then you guys removed them so the new ones could go in. So I think the new ones are going to be in over the next couple
And
of weeks.
these are going to be more prominent, too. The newer ones, I think, are probably going to be a little more prominent. I've seen other examples. I happen to live in Connecticut, and I've seen many of them.
Okay, yeah.
I'd be able to tell you some places where they exist, and I believe they work.
Yeah.
Very
Is that the
well.
one that says RRFB signage? Is that, okay.
Yeah, it's probably spelled out a little more detail earlier
That's
on,
fine,
in
I
the-
just want-
but it's what they call it is a rectangular rapid flashing beacon.
Yeah, I mean, because I live, I see green lights and red lights coming in my house all night long, and I don't know how these would affect people.
Only when somebody's there.
Huh?
In other words, it's not going to be a continuous red and yellow and green light all night long. It's going to be only
Activated
by when there's somebody actually crossing.
Oh, great, thank you.
Yeah.
That's a good, that's
Yeah.
that's really what I was
Yeah.
looking for
Yeah,
to
that's a
see.
big-
Because
that's
I
a big
couldn't
deal,
imagine
yeah.
the whole
Yeah,
town
going
being
off the
full
whole
with these
time.
flashing
Right.
lights. I mean, that might not work out too
We'll
well.
help you out. We'll help you out, Tom.
But if you just press the button, okay. Thank you.
That's pretty much it. I mean, from a scheduling standpoint, I guess the next, the town had some minor comments that were addressed as part of DOT's first round review of the Tier 2. Would expect that you would hear back shortly on any other comments or saying, go ahead, you can submit a project or projects for Tier 3. And then I think DOT takes the next 3 months, so probably in December or January, where they will make notification as to what funding would be available, and then you have a year to construct that project.
Okay,
You can ask for an extension if you need it, so it's not really, they always ask you, can you finish it in a year? Obviously, you say yes, and then,
yes, well, we're almost in October, so December isn't that far away.
yeah,
really.
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
Mark,
Yeah, I just have a couple of questions, Matt. One is that the Complete Streets funding, $400,000, I assume, it's up to, I would assume. It's not 0 or 400, the state can do anything in between, I assume.
That's correct,
Okay,
yeah.
but they've got this list, so they're not likely to say, here's $3,000 and your first project is a $10,000 project. I mean, that kind of it.
I would think that, I'm trying to just think of all the ones that have been awarded thus far.
Agawam got 400,000.
They get $400,000, but so some communities petition for a project that might be, $800,000, and they match $400,000. And then there's many communities that say, I need this, this, and this, and I only need, 400, or I need 100,000. So I think the lowest amount that I've heard that have been given out was like maybe 100,000 or something like that.
Okay. Oh, okay, so
And it depends on community need.
That's substantial money. The other question I have is about the project's ranking, maybe even project identification. Lots of things that we do end up with a public forum or public input. Has there been any public input at all into this project ranking to understand that people, really feel strongly about something that may have been lower on the list?
So the one thing, the ranking, it's a readiness rank. So we basically rank things in a manner that if something was easy to construct, and from an engineering standpoint, is it easy to build, easy to permit, and can it move forward? We tried to pull out the public perception of, this is the project you want. A lot of those projects, could move up higher on the list. We did consult with the police department to move some of those projects up. A lot of those projects tend to be higher in cost, and there are some bigger ones listed here that might not be necessarily funded through this particular process. But again, it's not a ranking to make a, this is the top priority project. It's more of like, these are the projects that we know can get constructed the soonest, and they meet a need from data that we've observed, not from a public perception. So we haven't had any public outreach meeting, but we don't know how much money we're getting, and we don't know how much, which projects are going to be put forward.
No, and I understand that.
Let
but
me
I
answer
guess-
that question differently.
Okay.
So in terms of like a public hearing on specifically this plan, Matt's correct, we haven't done that. But these projects were all kind of vetted by the DPW director, town engineer, myself, traffic sergeant, chief of police, a few others. And as you might imagine, we get public feedback continually. We hear from residents all the time on issues of safety. There needs to be a crosswalk here, there's no ramp there, I ride my bike to school, you know, so I feel like we have a very strong sense of what the community's priorities are for these types of projects based on the, like I said, near daily feedback we get from the community on all of our intersections. And so this list of projects and the discussions that we had, which we went back and forth on quite a few of those, really was informed by years of resident feedback regarding our streets and crosswalks. So this really is a synthesis of a vast amount of feedback you couldn't get from one public meeting. And I think the important thing is we did go into this, and when we talked about complete streets at its very outset, we said, and Tom mentioned at the beginning, our priority was connecting schools, connectivity to schools, and connectivity to the center of our community, our commercial center. And how do we kind of build, build in outer rings from those areas? And again, that's something that we have known from public meetings, people coming to select board meetings during resident comments and saying, what they wanted to see. And so we went in with that kind of operational priority, and that's how we got to the rankings that we had. And again, the other thing is, Matt's right, there is an engineering component to this. Like, what could you be ready to do? Like, somebody says, if someone says widen Shaker Road near Long Meadow Country Club to add a bike lane, I mean, there's permitting, there's wet, I mean, that's a big deal. You couldn't put that, even if that was the most important thing based on a public survey, it would never be able to fit on the ranking. So we tried to find stuff that is needed and that can be done to conform with the request from DOT.
Mm-hmm. I appreciate your response to that, because I think Mark brings up a good point. We want our residents to feel like they have input on the changes that are going to happen, especially major changes that include funding and from both the town and the state. And, this should encourage people in the community to call town hall, to let people know when there is a problem.
That's not what I'm saying at all.
No, but it is important,
No,
because
it is important.
if we're basing these decisions on feedback from residents, if residents don't call in and say, it seems to be a problem with this area or this area, because that is key. I mean, of course, the top of the list, it was pretty obvious there was a fatality in that area, and so
it was, by the way, that was the top of the list. And I think I
Yeah.
said that shortly after the accident, that was the top of the list before that occurred. And we don't know what, if anything, could have prevented the accident. But like I said at the time, at the last meeting, this is something we've been working for months on, really for years, but we've been working on this specific project for months. And
Right.
I think that, like I said, I think that the team that was working on it has a very clear saying. I just mentioned all the work that VHB, under Matt's direction, has done in the community. I hope people don't get the impression that because we didn't have like a public hearing that we weren't carrying the water for the many residents who have told us their concerns over the years. In fact, I think that those concerns were very well represented in what we came out with.
Okay, so if people don't call, they can text in their ideas,
We'll
right? Because it goes to
we'll get this posted on the
DPW.
website. When we submit it, we'll get it posted on the website, and we'll, we certainly can have a public meeting, and when we find out which projects are going to go forward, if the town's presented with an A or B choice, we can do some public outreach at that point.
But more importantly, Stephen, I think as a first pass, this obviously is a great amount of work and it means the right thing, but I think as people start seeing things coming along, I assume this becomes an annual submission to Complete Streets and funding. It may be that the second round or beyond, there are going to be more public input or things that we want to consider. I wouldn't assume that, you've got the top, I think you said 50 or 60 ranked here. Well, we'll do the top 8 this year and then just move everybody up, because there may be changes. There may be changes in needs, and maybe changes in public perception. I'd like to see that be included so that next time we do it.
And we may not be satisfied
There may or may not be changes. but
with
there
the
may-
results of some of these projects that we do. For example, if we don't think the flashing beacons are so great, then we may not choose to install them for future projects. So again, this list can get adjusted in
Well,
the future.
But the other thing, Andy, and this comes to your bailiwick, is, what conceptual ideas do we do some engineering work on it so that it does become ready if we get funding, as opposed to, well, even though we need it, it's never going to make this list because it just takes so, and I'm not suggesting it be what Stephen suggested,
Some of these
but,
projects are fairly simple to design. I
well,
know.
yeah, a crosswalk is a whole lot
Right,
different. You've done
right.
one, you've done them all, but
Right.
for the most part, except for how you get the electricity there. But all I'm saying is, at some point, should you be spending some effort on engineering some projects just so we can get them on a readiness list if the town feels that they're worthwhile doing, but we haven't,
But I think that's what sets us, I mean, I don't know if you saw the whole list, but
I've been
it's,
looking at it.
it's a vast
It's a-
list.
Right.
And I
What I
think
don't
that's-
see is what's not on the list.
Right, but there's 400-something projects. I mean, we can do that as we go forward, but there isn't, I mean, Andy and his team, especially Craig Markham, who's been here for a long time, really went through and identified a lot of deferred projects that
Right.
we did.
I'll just be absurd here, Stephen. Let's say we decided that it would make sense to build an elevated crosswalk over a street, somewhere. Now, that's not going to make this list because it's a ton of engineering, but if it really is a high priority, maybe we go out and do some of the engineering so the next time around, it is a quote-unquote ready project. And I don't know, because like I said, we've seen what's on the list, we haven't seen what's not on the list.
We did some work on the currently ranked number the community house.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Community
currently ranked number 2, the community house.
Right.
We've put together or VHB put together a conceptual design, actually, for the improvement of that crosswalk with the bump outs, because that's a very wide crossing. And perhaps that project can be combined perhaps with the one-way street, because it's in that vicinity. So we've done a little bit of work, but not a whole lot. And that's a good point, to, at least on a conceptual level, for the higher ranking projects, in our mind, to have these, at least a conceptual design, ready.
And I think you're exactly right. You would want to get the public outreach on some of those, more complex or projects that might change the aesthetics or the curbing or things like that. There are a lot of projects on here of, restriping crosswalks or bringing the wheelchair ramps to ADA compliance or sidewalks to ADA compliance. And a lot of that stuff's not changing anything new that's out there. It's just bringing more compliance. And then obtaining money through this program helps free up money with DPW and engineering to do other things. Whereas, you wouldn't hold a public hearing to have, hey, we're going to replace this sidewalk, and it's not changing. It's just going to be newer.
Okay, I know Marie wants to ask a question, but we have ramps on all of our sidewalks, and ADA compliance is just a little wider, is that what it is?
It depends on, there's cross slope, there's all kinds of level landing and other things for wheelchair ramps, and you have to have those detectable panels, which are those little, the yellow panels at the bottom of your.
I see.
So if those aren't there, then technically it's not meeting ADA, accessibility. So that's one of the big initiatives that was put forth as part of this, was to address a lot of those needs throughout town.
All right, thanks. Marie, did you?
I can see conceptually how you came up with the plan and pulled the projects along. There's 2 areas that I'm a little worried that got left out.
Okay.
And we might need to do it outside the complete plan, because I know you're going to be presenting this. One is, I saw a few issues where there's no sidewalks. Do we have a set of areas that need sidewalks that don't have them now? I know we did a huge amount of work in Converse, and that made a big difference. But there's other areas in town I know where there's sidewalks missing. This seems to concentrate on intersections. The other thing that I worried about that's missing from this, that didn't get poured into the pot, and that's the bike trails and bike lanes, because I know the concentration was ADA compliance and intersections. Is there any way to pull together even a parallel plan, so when we do the roads, we know that we have prepared, we have conceptually thought we're going to put a bike lane on laurel when we start to pave that section. We know we have a plan that we're going to do a bike lane on that section of Williams as we bring it in. And we thought about those two issues.
So there are, there's intersections in here, there's wheelchair ramps, there's rapid flashing beacons and crosswalks, and just crosswalks with no rapid flashing beacons. But there are several projects where there's a sidewalk added on one side of the street or on the other side of the street. So there are projects with sidewalks. There are projects where adding bike lanes on existing roadways. There's, I think, a couple projects where adding bike lanes require widening, so they might be lower down on the list because you have to either more grading, or you might need a small retaining wall, or you might need right-of-way, or things like that. But all that is in here.
Okay, so we do, because I didn't, when I was going through it, I just didn't see bike lanes. I saw intersections and crosswalks.
Well,
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's a prioritization plan, so there's not a parallel plan. It's
So they
it's a-
are
it-
on there, they're just lower in the.
Right, and Matt went through how the rankings got developed. It's in the narrative too, but it's a prioritization plan. So they're on there, but not everything can be number one.
No, I'm
And
not
so
expecting that. I was just hoping that we did have the
Yeah.
bike trails on there and the additional sidewalks, because it might not get to the complete streets money, but I know that there's bike money out there. And if we have those on the plan on a lower level, they might end up getting pulled up when there's leftover money on tip or something like that.
So there are-
I just didn't see that, but I just was roughly trying to get through the
Yeah,
plan.
so there's, I mean, there's a couple, there's one in here, there's, traffic lanes, bike lanes, and sidewalks, number 51. It was Bliss Road, Bliss Court, and William Street. So pavement marking, signage, new accommodations for bicycles, et cetera. And it's a $430,000 project. So that's item 51, but that's just one example that has the bike lanes. We did look at bike lanes. We primarily looked at a lot of them a lot of projects that either could accommodate bike lanes easily, that would meet the intent of the plan. That would be a restriping exercise, whereas something, if you were widening, you would want to get more public input on anything that might impact, the separation between sidewalks and the curb line, or might widen, increase pavement width, and things like that.
Yeah,
But there are some things in here, they are listed by street, roadway, and project description, so, there could be a couple projects, like you said, with the bike lanes. There are some on here, but there might be more that are on the list that didn't make this list. There was another list that we started to populate, but we decided, because of time constraints to focus, and budget constraints to focus on, these projects and get into really detail on these. But then we had the backup list that will get added to this.
Okay, so there is a backlist that probably includes more bike lanes, because I know one of the things is we don't have a connecting bike trail. We're sort of like the hole between East Long Meadow and Springfield and everything. So that sort of stuff you're saying
Like an
is
off-road bike trail, or like a,
just,
kind
there
of bike
is
lanes.
the bike trail that
Yep.
goes to all the towns, and then when it hits Long Meadow, and it just falls into a.
That's
'cause
all.
there's-
It's all
yeah.
rail bed, though, isn't it?
No, it's not all rail bed.
Is it
It's
East
coming
Long?
up, what is that street, Benton?
Yeah.
Comes up Benton Drive, and then, so I've talked to various people, and they have ideas on where it could go. But, so you're saying those are on it, so they're in the pot, it just hasn't rolled out to the first few projects?
there wasn't anything that we looked at. What you're talking about is making a better connectivity from another town to through a town. We didn't get into that detail. That seems like that's a lot of kind of talking with some of the advocacy groups, biking and whatnot, to make sure the connection's right. We were focusing on existing roadways where there's, the cross width is suitable to get a bike lane in that would be safe for somebody to use without a minimal amount of widening or impact to the user or to the abutting property.
So if an advocacy group did want to get a project on the complete plan for the future, not something that's going to come up for this round, how is the process that works? Is it that we have a public meeting once a year, or they just bring that to the town manager and engineering and say, please consider this to be put into the long-range plan?
They could do it that way. We can have a public hearing on it. I mean, either way.
Okay.
But I think the first step is to bring it to us. Then we bring it to the traffic committee, go through the same process we do with all these projects.
Okay.
I think one of the, just to point out with bike lanes, currently we have one of the ranked number 4 is Bliss Road, which would be just to the west of the shops. This project would include widening the road a little bit, about 4 feet, adding the bike lanes on each side, and then having the speed tables at the locations where people cross. So that's actually one of the higher dollar projects currently ranked as number 4. And of course, when you widen a road, you have to perform the drainage improvements.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to it. When you actually have to widen a road for a bike path, it's great when you already have the width. So that's one. That happens to be one bike lane
That's great.
project, even though it's a short distance.
It's an important one.
Something there. It's an important one.
Great.
Thank you.
Well, Marie, thanks for bringing up the bike lane. Richard?
Yeah, well, thank you for bringing up that bike lane. I hope some of the people that constantly say that we don't do advanced planning are watching tonight, because we've got just one document here on our complete streets. I looked for a total, it's several million. Do you have a guesstimation of what it would take to fully implement this?
You know, that's a very good question. I didn't total them up, but
Okay, many, many, many,
I'm
many.
sure.
More than we got
I'm
right
sure.
now.
Many, many, many millions.
Yep.
And it also, Steve, and I was sitting here thinking when I was listening to Marie lobbying for a project, there are so many plans that we have in DPW and that the engineering division runs. It's kind of a shame that we don't, once every 2 weeks or every second meeting or so, have Andy come in and talk about one plan and just put some slides up so that let everybody know that there's a lot of stuff behind the scenes, and so we can kind of dispel this rumor that we're not doing advanced planning, because we know how much is being done. There's millions and millions of dollars worth of identified projects right now that are being in database and trying to make the best possible decisions, and this just represents one very small one. And I don't think the public becomes aware of it. They don't see it in our meetings. They hear the headlines when somebody says they don't have anything. And we sit here red-faced saying, you're not watching our meetings. So maybe for future agenda, I'd like to see it. I think Andy's set up a nice shop down there. He's taken a real strong grip on the engineering division in town, I guess under your leadership and under our new director of DPW. But we are making some monumental changes in how business is performed in Longmeadow.
I appreciate that, Richard. If I just make one more brief comment, Tom.
Yes.
I think, you know, and this is sarcastic, but the way to do that is to tell people we're going to take up all of the crosswalks in town, and we're not going to have any crosswalks, and have that story be in the newspaper. And then when people go nuts, then we'll say, oh, by the way, we have this plan, here you go, and then they'll pay attention to it. But I agree with you. I think this is a great plan. And like I said, I think this is something that you've been talking about for years. All the board has been talking about. They need to upgrade our infrastructure. It's a very dedicated way. But I do need to acknowledge publicly that when Marie first brought this forward, I argued with her and told her privately and told her it was a waste of time and these projects never amount to anything and there's never any funding and we already do this already. And I couldn't have been more wrong about it. The Complete Streets has been a very valuable tool for the town. The state has backed up with dollars, and so you're right, I was wrong.
But you made it happen.
Can we have a drum roll?
I should record it so I can replay
In all
it.
sincerity, I do want to thank, Marie was really want to put us on the radar screens. I want to thank you. And the other thing is the bylaw he mentioned won a national award as a best practice bylaw. And so this is something the town really is doing right, and I appreciate the acknowledgement, Richard.
There's also, incidentally, if anybody's interested, they're continuously offering these Complete Streets training classes. I had to attend one of them. I went to 2 of them, but they're always being offered. So if anybody has any spare time, it's interesting.
There's a big mobility conference coming up. I think aren't you guys? You and a couple of guys are going to that, right?
I'm not going to the mobility.
Moving together?
Moving, yeah, are you going?
Yeah, that's a couple weeks. 29th, I think.
Yeah, it's a big. I think it's.
Did you ever go?
I'm not
No.
going.
Okay, maybe I'll go.
There's a big, but the state is always annually the state puts on and these interest groups, the ridership groups, you know, East Coast Bike Trail, they routinely put on these conferences, and you know when we can go, we try and get in there and learn out what's happening out there in the transportation world. So.
All right.
I just want to say one thing, and that is Converse Street just tells you what a big difference the Complete Streets is making. It's huge. Do you see people walking up and down, children? I mean, the amount of traffic I've never seen before, and people are out of the streets walking. It's a wonderful thing to see, and that's a fabulous project that you helped pull over the finish line. It's really an amazing change in our town.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
biggie.
And I also think that the state should be taking some leadership with this, and I'm glad that they're putting in their share. You know, we have a main road coming through town, Route 5, and there are sections on that that really aren't very bikeable, but yet that's the main thoroughfare from all the way almost to Canada down to the shore. In Springfield, recently they had a fatality on Route 20, and there's a section where there's no sidewalks, everything is overgrown. You know, the biker only had about 18 inches, and they got hit by a truck, and that was the end of them. And you know, roads like Route 20 and 5, you know, really should be, the state should be sure that there is safe access, you know, for people. And I know in our town, you know, we're doing our best, and, you know, I applaud Marie for her role in this, and against opposition. But, well, thank you. I don't know if there's any other questions or comments. Well,
It's a great plan, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. We'll hopefully we'll come back with some good news on grants shortly.
Yeah.
Should be coming soon. Right, soon. I think
Well,
pretty soon. Is that the next step?
December, I think they will give out, that's when they
Oh, were they
award.
notified?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. We'll have to wait.
And Stephen, please give some consideration to having Andy come back every once in a while and tell us what's going on in the town.
We want to see you every month.
Show some of the plans.
I like to talk, so.
Yeah.
I like meetings.
We'll think about how to do that.
There's a lot of good stuff out there.
Yeah, there is.
all right.
Thanks,
Thank you.
guys.
Thank you, gentlemen. So we will move on, and should we go to the town manager's report, or should we just go to the line, the bond
get
issue?
Paul.
Oh, the health
Yeah, the Board
department,
of
of
Health is
course.
a pretty straightaway thing.
Board of Health, new permit fee that you sent us this nice email. Please step up, and if you could just
That's correct.
introduce yourself properly, right?
I think I've met just about every one of you, but I'm Beverly Hirschhorn. I'm your health director. And annually, the Board of Health permits all sorts of businesses, ranging from various types of food establishments, camps, pools, mobile food units, septic system repairs, whatever. And our permit period for the Board of Health is, for some reason, and I'm not quite sure why, but it started probably 40 or 50 years ago, runs from September 1st to August 31st. And I know that there is a tremendous amount of pressure to keep up our revenue stream. But we did notice one injustice in one of the fees, and we'd like to bring it to your attention and see if we could give 2 or 3 businesses some relief. One of our permits is called a retail food permit, and those could the types of businesses that are covered under those permits would be something like Big Y's and Armadas. It could be the Delaney Market. It could be a gas station that sells perishable foods, or a gas station that sells non-perishable foods. And there are various price ranges depending on the sales volume. And we now have at least 2 establishments that used to sell perishable foods. They are gas station, convenience store type operations. They used to sell milk and other perishable type items, and they've gotten out of that business and are now just selling cold drinks that don't need to be refrigerated from a food safety perspective. And they sell a lot of packaged foods. And there should be, in the opinion of the Board of Health, some relation between the cost of the permit and what the inspectional services that the town provides. And it seemed innately unfair for these types of establishments to have a minimum fee of $195 per year, which is the lowest fee for food, retail food establishments. So the Board of Health has preliminarily, at its last meeting, passed had the consensus that they would like to establish a new category of license, which would be retail food with no sale of perishable food items. And there still is some work to be done. There's obviously, I'd want to go in there at least once a year to make sure that the food was displayed in a manner that the food was protected. For example, you wouldn't want to have antifreeze displayed right over packages of chips. And also, there is some work that would need to be done in terms of recalls and potential tampering. Believe me, I get recall notices just about every day, and some of them do include packaged food items. And we have all of our licensees on a email list to let them know, to reinforce what their providers might not be catching up on. So I think we were thinking of requesting that the Board of Selectmen consider a fee in the $25 to $35 a year range for these types of stores, rather than the $195, which is the current permit fee. And as I recall, under the charter, the Board of Health is no longer setting fees for permits, and that is in the exclusive domain of the Board of Selectmen. So I hope that you could consider some financial relief for these businesses, and we'll think of some other way to get some other kinds of permit fees, but not in this particular direction.
Okay.
Okay.
Mark?
Yeah, Beverly, yeah, thank you. I just have a question. Does that mean if these establishments go back to selling perishable food?
They go back to the
They go back to the...
The 195.
Okay, so this is literally bags of chips and... Okay.
Right, Coke, energy drinks, something like that.
But something like the Delaney Market,
No,
that's perishable food. It's all
yes,
refrigerated.
and
Okay.
they may not even be at the 195 level. They may be considerably higher than that. And we're not even mentioning a place like Big Y. And to be very honest, you may not be aware that some of the large supermarkets have multiple licenses. So they're retail food, food service, bakery, on and on and on, so that the annual tab for Big Y could easily be $1,000.
Okay, but you're only talking about the places that literally are selling prepackaged.
Right.
Yep.
Just the chips, the
Coffee
sometimes
cakes and-
candy bars, something like that.
Makes sense. Thanks.
Yeah, the sad part is I still can't, hard to grasp that those are non-perishable, but I guess they'll last forever, right?
Well, they don't need to be refrigerated, and I'm sorry to say that you wouldn't really want to know what's in some of these products. There's a lot of chemicals that are needed to keep them from being non-perishable items.
But they'll last a long time. Any questions for Beverly along these lines? This seems like
I'll make a motion that we set a permit fee for health inspection for non-perishable food items, or for stores selling non-perishable food items at $35.
Is that seconded?
Second.
Okay, open for discussion. Any discussion on this? All right, well, I guess we'll call it for a vote. All those in favor? Okay.
Thank you. It just seemed like an injustice to these particular places, and we'll find some other thing to raise revenue.
Yeah.
I just want to mention one other thing that I will be forwarding to Steve. a regulation that the Board of Health has been sort of considering for a number of months, and that it actually does fall within boards of health, and most towns have it as a public health regulation rather than than a bylaw, and that has to do with recycling and instituting mandatory recycling for not for residences but for commercial establishments. At this point in time, all of the large corporations already have recycling, your major companies. And we wanted to put this, to make this as an actual regulation. It shouldn't cost the businesses any more money than they already are spending, because I do not know at the present time any business in Long Meadow that is not contracting with one of the larger corporations. But the Board of Health very strongly feels that the public health impact of recycling and preventing additional pollution over the long term. And so we wanted to have that as an actual regulation, but I will send the wording to that we're considering. But boards of health are really limited to considering public health matters. They're not their charge and their authority is very limited. We're not allowed to consider financial considerations, although we understand that there are these considerations. So we wanted to give a heads up to the Board of Selectmen who have authority in that matter. So you'll be getting that.
Is it okay to just ask Beverly if there's any update on bees? Well, it's such a big deal at the town meeting, and I know the Board of Health is going to do something.
Yeah.
Well,
And make it short, please, because I don't know that we...
I think that the Board of Health would have liked to have seen some action taken by the planning board in terms of restricting the locations, or the stability of the beehives on roofs if the planning board deemed to allow beehives to be on roofs. The planning board hasn't gone forward, and I think that we feel that, again, that our authority is limited to public health matters. So we're going to try to incorporate as many of the suggestions as the local beekeepers group was able to come up with, and also we've had input by the state apiary inspector. She was actually present at the town meeting. She spoke for a few minutes. But to keep our authority more or less limited to public health issues, and hope that at some point in time we can come up with a little better solution.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. And thank you for this idea about recycling, putting that on the table. It's
Okay, so you'll be receiving that. The board's going to take a look at it next Monday and then get it over to Steve so that you can take a look at it.
Okay, great. Thank you. Have a good evening. All right, so. Should we call Paul up?
We can. Sure, it's a pretty short item, although I'll
Yes.
stay for the town manager's report in case there's any questions I can answer on that.
So you're going to discuss the refinancing of the loan for the Long Meadow High School?
Very quickly, on September 27th, the town will be out in the bond market looking to refinance about $21.3 million of the original December 2010 $29 million bond that we took out mainly for the high school. There was also, I believe, 2 small water projects in there also. As part of that, our financial advisor, Clark Rowell, had asked that the board take a preliminary vote in support of that refinancing. I believe that vote was sent around, the wording for it. And I'm basically here to make sure that that vote gets carried out tonight. Very quickly, this refinancing is anticipated to save about $2.3 million worth of interest over the remaining 20 years on the bond. It's going to end up being about a little over $100,000 per year, which will have an effect certainly on the amount that the taxpayers pay. It's only going to be about 5 or 6 cents on the tax rate, but given the fact that we have other projects coming online, it will mitigate those impacts.
Just kidding. You, Tom? I'll make the motion if you want to.
No, we have a motion that our clerk will be making.
Okay.
Bill?
Well, I'd like to make a motion that we take a vote on the refinancing of the bonds. Do I need to read this?
You could.
Need to read what's in there,
It's
that's
big,
for sure.
this here, okay.
Yeah.
Voted that in order to reduce interest costs, the treasurer is authorized to issue refunding bonds at one time or from time to time pursuant to Chapter 44, Section 21A of the general laws, or pursuant to any other enabling authority to refund all or a portion of the town's $29,262,940 general obligation municipal purpose loan of 2010 bonds dated December 15th, 2010, maturing on February 15th in the years 2020 through 2038 inclusive, and on August 15th, 2040 collectively, the refunded bonds, and that the proceeds of any refunded bonds issued pursuant to this vote shall be used to pay the principal and interest on the refunded bonds and costs of issuance of the refunding bonds.
Okay, so that's the
Second.
motion.
Second.
You seconded? Okay. Open for discussion. Yeah, I did have a question. Now, the $29 million, we had a term of how many years to pay that?
That originally was taken out for 30 years.
30 years.
So we're going to be almost 10 years into it.
Yeah.
That we'll be refunding. So we'll be taking out a loan for 20 years. The true interest cost that was in effect for the full 30-year loan that we originally took off was over 4%, 4.23 or something to that nature. We're looking at a true interest cost that is going to be just a little bit over 3 at this point in time. So that's really where all the savings come from, is a 20-year loan with a lower interest rate. Because again, there is about $21.3 million that we'll be refinancing.
Now, this is is there any advantage to us taking a 15-year term and paying about the same amount, but then to turn it over, ended sooner?
Certainly, we would probably get a lower interest rate, but I think the impact on the tax rate might be the same, and we still do have a number of projects that are going to have an impact on our tax rate. The DPW project is not that far away. That will impact. We'll probably be out, maybe doing some bond anticipation notes in 6 or 9 more months, and probably probably financing that through a permanent loan, maybe within the next year. So we're trying to balance out all these things so the impact on the tax rate isn't going to spike on us per se. But
Yeah.
Tom, you're right. I mean, if we took out it for 15 years, we would have probably a little bit lower interest rate, but that additional principal would put a spike on the overall amount of taxes that the people are paying on it.
It would exceed what we've appropriated for that function in the budget too.
Well,
Our annual debt service would push our annual debt service payments up beyond what we have budgeted.
Well, yes, for this year, obviously, because we have the budget already set, correct?
No, but I think what Tom's asking
Yeah.
is, how much can we borrow at 15, or maybe how many years can we borrow at 15 years, or borrow the same money at 2.8%, so we're paying the same amount per year we're currently scheduled to pay, but we end up paying this thing off that much
I
sooner.
understand.
5 years
All
early.
I'm saying is because you're going to be paying a higher principal amount in those 15 years instead of 20, and I don't have an exact answer for you, Mark,
Wait,
but because you're paying off that principal amount in 15 years as opposed to 20, you are going to add an additional burden to the taxpayer in those 15 years. As it's going to increase as opposed to what we're doing now is refinancing and actually giving them a break.
So just to be clear, Paul, because I've gone through this with you before, is municipal bonds aren't like a home mortgage where it's a level payment for the term of the bond. We pay different amounts, and so we would actually pay more. I think that's what is that what you're saying?
No, I mean, the loans here that we have are basically taken out on a mortgage basis. They
Okay.
are relatively stable debt service payments going out for the life of the bonds. All I'm saying is that, again, if you're borrowing 20 million and you do it over 20 years as opposed to 15, or if you do it over 15 as opposed to 20, you're going to have higher principal payments. And I think those higher principal payments are going to outweigh the interest savings that you have, and there's going to be an additional cost to the taxpayer instead of what we're doing now is taking a slight reduction to the taxpayer.
So is Tom's question, should it be how many years could we borrow this at to have?
No effect.
Right.
There would be, it would be the same payment per.
Right. I don't have that. I don't have that prepared. I don't have.
Clark did run some data on this, and this was what he recommended, our financial advisor, right? Didn't he?
Certainly, he made the recommendation on.
Yeah, I think he had
20 years.
he had spreadsheets in front of him, but I think the point is to provide relief today, whereas what you're proposing would not provide any relief for
Currently,
15 years.
right. No, it would provide, it would be the same amount that we had planned on when we took out the 29 million, but it would be for a shorter period of
Right,
time.
it might be 18 years.
Because, part of me thinks that if we have more money in the budget, because we save on this, because we reduce our liability for this thing, that people will just spend it. And and that's why I would rather
Well,
just,
no,
I'd rather just pay off the debt.
That will not be the case. The debt service is appropriated in one section of the law.
Yeah.
The way that the budget is formulated is by function, and we can't appropriate it outside of that function, so there's really nothing we can use it for.
Oh, I see.
It's not like your mortgage where if you pay it off early, you're going to take that money and go to Cancun every year.
Yeah.
Once we pay the debt off, we can't use that money for that.
If there is anything left over, two things are going to happen. It's going to be returned back to the general fund, and whatever is turned back is then going to be offset against next year's taxes, really, because we would have overcharged the taxpayer through the debt exclusion this year. It will be refunded back to them next year.
Okay.
But it will not be expended. It will return back to the general fund.
All right. Well, thank you for your patience and answering my question.
Now, I'm sure the town manager is going to talk about the Moody's discussion that we had on Friday, so
Yeah, and my town
I'll leave that
manager.
to him.
And his town manager's role. Okay, so any other discussion or questions on this? All right, so we're looking at reducing our interest rates for the same term of length of, the term of the loan will be the same, but we'll save ourselves some money. All those in favor? Okay, unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
And at long last, we'll go to the town manager's report.
Thanks, Tom. I'll be very brief. As Paul mentioned, we did have a call with Moody's, our bond rating agency, along with our financial advisor, town accountant Jason Ducharme, and town treasurer Cheryl Kudnick were also on the call, and along with our finance director. And the savings that are projected are based on a AA2 rating with a stable credit profile. Naturally, Moody's isn't going to tell us at the end of the phone call what they're going to do because they have to do some due diligence and write a report. Nevertheless, I still asked him, what are you going to do? And I'll just say that he gave us no reason to think that anything was going to change, including like being put on a watch, a credit profile being put, even if we kept the AA2, if you put on a watch, they have a watch rating, it can, the underwriters and the bond issuance people can get a little jumpy about that, but we feel like it's, we sustained our excellent credit rating. We had a long discussion about, Richard, to your point about planning. We talked to them about all the things that, when they said, well, this looks like something that could be an issue going forward, we said, but here's the ways we're trying to mitigate that within, the parameters that we have financially and from a taxation standpoint. So I thought it was a positive call, and like I said, I think we're going to keep our rating.
And Stephen, I was also there observing.
Yes, you
I
were,
must have-
actually.
Not a key player, but I know that some of the other chairs have observed this process, and it really is impressive in terms of the professionalism of our staff, Paul and Stephen specifically, but the people who prepared them for this meeting. But it just shows that we've made some really good decisions that sound good to Moody's. And I think that it was nice to hear, and it was a great job.
Yeah.
Mark.
Yeah, just a question about, so in this discussion, does OPEB come up? Does, all those things that we talk about, we're going to use to potentially downgrade?
Yeah, basically everything we've talked about for the last 2-3 years has come up and comes up.
We throw everything at them, Mark. The big things are, they have a set of questions that they send us in advance. And it's things like any major changes in taxation, any changes with top employers in the town, any changes with,
Liabilities.
Liabilities, things like that. And we just run through all of the things that we do in a given year. They have, concerns about our reserves. We talk about, we're waiting for our free cash certification, but we talk about how, we really don't have anything major this year coming down that we think we're going to need to, burn up a lot of free cash, or that we'll be able to make a healthy contribution to our operational stabilization fund. We talk about, when they say OPEB, we talk about how we have readopted the new provisions, of the Municipal Modernization Act that establish our OPEB trust as an actual trust. And so there's, and we don't, you guys know, we don't chase our bond rating when we make our policy decisions or our recommendations. We just do what we think is right for the town based on our existing conditions and our future plans. The net result is we get to sustain our good bond rating because those things are by and large the right decisions. So, as Tom noted, and I apologize for leaving you off the list there, it really is a wide-ranging discussion where many things we've talked about get brought up in the context of this is why you can bet on us for the next 20 years, because these are the things we're doing today to sustain that for the next 20 years. And so, like I said, I thought it was a good discussion. We were able to highlight really a lot of great things that we're doing, certainly through Paul's efforts too.
Again, that report will come out later on this week with the rating, but they'll also have their narrative. There might be a couple of things that would be mentioned in there that from a policy standpoint, the Board of Selectmen, Select Board may just want to look at, because it might be updating a few policies that haven't been looked at in 10 or 15 years. And one of them might be the reserves in water and sewer, as an example. That may come out as a recommendation that those, even though we have a $500,000 minimum on there, that they think it's a little bit higher, and maybe this board should take the time now to, at some point in time in the near future, maybe just look at those.
Okay, and for those who are at home who may not have heard everything Paul was saying, I'll just condense it to say that Moody's will be announcing on this Friday, is that it?
It will be out, it'll probably be posted on the website by Friday.
Yeah.
The rating and the actual report itself.
And the report, so that's great, and we can then move forward with this refinancing. Okay. All right, the manager's report continues.
It does. So we did receive our grant. I sent out the letter to the board on Friday. We did receive a $1.3 million grant from State 911 Department, Executive Office of Public Safety, to continue our effort to establish a regional dispatch center. The big components of the approval, if you read the letter, are the hiring of the manager, the fit out of the space in the Chicopee Police Department, and the purchasing of the kind of backbone equipment that we're going to need. Once we've done all of those things and spent all this money, we're still going to need to go back for additional grant monies for establishing redundancy and some other things before we can do like the official cutover date. So I still think we're probably a year away from actually having a regional dispatch center fully operational. But you can't get to that point without going through the steps that they approved. You know, they can only give out a certain amount of money each year. The money is collected from cell phone charges, and so they have a finite amount, and they try and develop centers all across the state incrementally versus making it like the TIP program where they just pick one and they give you everything you need, and then everybody else just gets in line. There really isn't enough money in the program to do that. But it is I think a great win for the communities, Chicopee, East Long Meadow, and Hamden, that have been involved in this for several years. And I think once you see an executive director hired, things are really going to start to go fast, and this is really going to go from a concept to an actual place that we can go visit, and you can see the equipment and meet the manager and do everything. So I'm very, very excited. We're gonna have our next meeting of it'll be kind of the last meeting of the district planning committee and the first meeting of the Westcom board of directors. As you remember in the district agreement, there's established a board of directors. So we'll have to, that board will be then get established to help manage the grant and carry forward all these processes.
Stephen, actually, Mark, you were asking about Moody's, and this is the kind of thing that when we present this to Moody's, that we're regionalizing, and it will save us a lot of money in terms of keeping up with technology for 911 calls. Moody's knows we're on the ball.
Yeah.
It sounds good.
And we're still relatively ahead of the curve compared to the rest of the Commonwealth. There really still aren't that many of these. So like I said, I'm pleased with that outcome and look forward to going after the next round. I just wanted to, on Tuesday, the 26th, there'll be a joint operation between Long Meadow Police Department and Amtrak called Operation Clear Track. It's really to raise awareness of pedestrian and vehicle trespassing on rail crossings. We're focusing on the Emerson Road crossing, which is the active one that we have. As you know, the Tina Lane crossing has been closed to pedestrians and vehicles since March. And that's why we're focusing on it. It is a nationwide event. It is in no way connected to the accident we had. If that accident had never happened, like we all wish, we probably would still be doing this program with Amtrak. We do know that there are people that do cross in random places down there to go enjoy the natural wonders of the conservancy land of the Fanny Stebbins Wildlife Refuge. And people just need to be aware that you just should not be doing it. That is trespassing. If you're not, it's like jaywalking on a railroad. It's a crime. It's a trespass if you aren't doing it at designated crossing areas. And so they're trying to raise awareness for that. And again, it's a nationwide program, and we're just partnering them to raise awareness locally.
Well, Stephen, I just, this is we got this in our package, the safety tips, and it has a number of things to consider in terms of how we should deal with railroad trains and tracks. And I was wondering if we could have this sent out, this form, to like the Allen Bird Watching Society and maybe, I don't even know if people who walk their dogs, people who have licenses in town. I mean, because the main folks who cross those are probably dog walkers and bird watchers. And I don't know if there's any way we can share this information with them.
Well, we're hoping to catch people on the 26th and hand them this. They'll be handing them this
They'll be
literature.
handing it out down by the railroad track.
We certainly ought to. I know they posted the stuff on the Facebook page, and so I would encourage anybody who enjoys the refuge to check out the information. I don't want to target specific groups and say, we think you guys are doing this wrong, so here's the information.
Yeah.
But I do want to, you're right, I want to make sure we get the word out as broadly as possible.
Yeah. Could we get DPW to make some temporary signage that would just have these on and at various places down there?
It would be an
can't do
Amtrak thing.
We can't do that in our Fanny Stebbins? You can't put those up?
Not along the tracks.
No, not along the tracks. I'm saying where people park their cars.
Yeah, I mean, we can do that. I think we have to check with the Fanny Stebbins, as you know, is now the Silvio Conti U.S. Fish and Wildlife Reserve, so it's not Town of Long Meadow anymore. But we work with them closely.
Yeah.
We can find a way to do that.
Just to staple it up, like some places they have kiosks where before you go for a hike. We don't really have any sort of a thing like that. But if we could get it out to, and I think the birders are probably the folks who go back in there the most. I know there's a big hawk migration now, but it's mostly in the spring that they go back in there that I know of. But anything we can do to help them out, if, as we saw in the paper, Amtrak is going to, appropriate quite a bit of money.
So, right, and that wasn't in here, but
Yeah.
I did find out that Mass DOT has said that they're going to put it on their work plan.
Oh, Mass DOT.
It's federal funding, but it's called the Section 130 program, but Amtrak still needs to declare the crossing public, which we thought they had, but there's some mixed signals on that. And the Federal Highway Administration has to sign off on the project, so it's not a done deal yet, but it's certainly a great sign that Mass DOT is stepping up and taking leadership on trying to get this addressed. And that's, that's really new ground in this effort to get a crossing there. It's further than it's ever gotten before to get the state to say, okay, we're going to put it on a work plan. And so I'm pleased with that. And it was just coincidentally that I learned that on the day that they were talking about, the news generated a story about Operation Clear Track, and I thought kind of misrepresented what this was supposed to be about. But I'm pleased that I learned on that same day, coincidentally, that we were going to have good news for the community and the family about the fact that this is moving forward, still slow, but that's Mass DOT. If you recall, in the 90s, when this broke down in the past, one of the reasons was the state really wouldn't embrace the project, and now they have. So we're just going to keep pushing and hoping that Amtrak does its part.
And if there's anything this board could do to promote, as people can call or send a letter, invite to a meeting,
Yeah, I think that there's a role for us to play. We're gonna absolutely do it. I just don't know what that is just yet. It's in conference rooms and things like that, in places like Washington D.C. and New York and Boston, and it's not at a public. It's not a place where the public can really engage and be a part of it at this point.
Well, I still feel at some point, I would like to have Amtrak come here and talk to us about, the increasing number of trains that are going to be going through our town, and their, will they support us on this? So.
Sure.
All right. Thank you.
Just a couple of notes about the Charter Review Committee and Permanent Building Committee. A couple of new groups that were created this year. Charter Review Committee they're trying to get a sense of how they're going to go about their business, and they've set a couple of benchmarks. The first is myself and the superintendent will be meeting jointly with them, with our finance director and the business manager, and we'll be going through and relaying town administration and school administration recommendations from the staff level to the Charter Review Committee. That'll be the 26th. Oh, it's the 3rd, October 3rd. And then they're going to meet again on November 8th. And they'll be looking at getting feedback from the Finance Committee, Audit Committee's on the 8th. So I don't know the schedule top man, but they're setting some meetings with specific agendas or specific people they're inviting to get feedback from. And I know they are going to also try and undertake a, kind of a page-by-page analysis. But I just want to report they have been meeting. They're interacting, on emails, keeping each other up to date. So they are putting their work in, even if there's nothing visible right now. Similarly, the Permanent Building Committee has had a couple of meetings. At one, we had Weston Sampson present the most recent floor plans. I thought the committee, again, trying to figure out what's its role, how's it going to operate. It's a brand new group of people assembled. I thought they did very well listening to the presentation, asking great questions, giving great feedback on the plans. Then they met again and discussed advancing the Adult Center project. We are in the process of I'm going to appoint a designer selection board. I'll include a couple of people from the Permanent Building Committee to recruit a new designer for the Adult Center project. Because, they have a 200, it's 250 or 200, but they have an appropriation from town meeting to continue the design and the master plan for the Greenwood site. We're in the process of doing the procurement stuff we need to do to get that to happen. In the meantime, we're going to hire a surveyor to survey and do a topographical plan of Greenwood and do wetlands flagging, so we have a baseline that we can start working off of early in the process. There's some discussion at this point about pushing forward for debt exclusion vote on the May town meeting warrant, so that's something that they may be presenting to the select board as a request. We have to get the architect under contract as soon as possible and get to schematic level design minimally to be able to do that. But there was a discussion about that the other night.
Stephen, we've never had any approval to use that site, though, have we?
It was a select board directive.
Was it, I'm fuzzy then.
Yeah. The determination we got from council was that it can be used under the statute under which it was required. You can use it for any municipal use.
Mhm.
The select board can make that determination, and the board did actually, in fact, take a vote to make that the site, to choose, to designate that as the site.
Okay, I said I was fuzzy on it, and then there's been so many pieces that we've
Yeah, a
beat
lot of
back
moving
and
parts.
forth. Yeah, we talked about dementia group in here, right?
I wasn't gonna say anything, but I
Yeah.
was,
With that, is there any other action that's required on that? Or is that 100% select board?
well, I mean, ultimately, town meeting's gonna make the decision whether they're gonna build a building there,
But
but it's
that's
not,
for the
but it's
warrant
not
for
like an Article
construction.
97 thing where you need to go through a process with the state or anything like
Right.
that, no.
There's nothing hidden out in the woods?
However
that's
we
gonna-
make our local property decisions,
Okay.
we can make.
Yeah, I guess I just want to make sure there was something not hidden that's going to come up and jump on us again.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Not that we found in the that's one of the reasons why it was chosen as the site was because we did get the opinion that you can use it
Yeah.
for municipal use, somewhat unfettered. Capital Planning Committee, we met with them. I think I had reported that we had engaged them in discussion about ways to streamline and improve our capital planning process. The two big goals being shorten the duration of the capital planning process so the bids aren't a year old when we go out to bid and we end up getting pricing that's not affordable because we had a year-old price. And to, I still want to, and I think the DPW spends, I mean, many hours, cumulatively, hundreds of staff hours, to prepare and research the applications that go to me first and then to the capital planning committee. And they, I mean, there's the 5-year plan, long-range plan that they also do, and there's, dozens and dozens of projects on that, but they're just placeholders. There's some level of information and kind of a back-of-the-envelope pricing. But the annual fiscal year projects that we pursue need to be a lot more accurate so we can ask for the right amount of money at town meeting. And they'll prepare 30 applications totaling $4 or $5 million. You remember this from last year when we have $1.5 million or so to spend. And what we've been trying to do is get to the point where we're more realistic about what we're going to be asking for. And so instead of applying for $4 million worth of projects for $2 million in funding, shorten that up so we can take those hundreds of man hours and spend them on a smaller number of applications and get much more detail, much better narrative, spend more time getting better, maybe 2 quotes instead of 1, and really tighten all that stuff up. So we kicked around the ideas of the capital planning committee, and their recommendation was basically figure out what we're going to have. Paul annually figures out what we think the capital allocation is going to be, and then take 150, multiply that by 150%, and come up with a sum of projects that are kind of about that range. So the capital planning committee and then the select board has the discretion as to what they're going to prioritize and fund and what they're not, and not just to take it or leave it. Here's $2 million worth of projects for $2 million worth of money. We want to make sure that they have some decision making over this. And then the other thing is they're due to the capital planning committee December 15th. And since we're doing a smaller number of them, I don't need to see them probably before maybe Thanksgiving. And then the quotes won't be done in, October. They'll be done in November, December. And we'll be able to shorten that, buy ourselves at least a month on that timeline. So it was a good discussion in the capital planning committee. I'll tell you that I did not have to argue with them at all to get this done. They understand the processes that they want to work on, and we're going to try this. There's nothing set in stone, but we're going to try this and see if this helps improve the process.
Okay, great.
And then the last thing is, we did find out that we prevailed. I know there was an open meeting law complaint filed against the town. We prevailed in that. The planning board was found to not have violated the open meeting law. And there was a preliminary injunction filed by Pride to prevent the public hearing from happening on Wednesday. That was denied, so there will be a public hearing regarding their site plan review application on Wednesday night at the planning board here. So those are 2 good news pieces. A couple of other items that aren't on here. One is we did do a posting for the assistant town manager. We received 1 application. So we'll be doing a rigorous grilling and screening and testing of that applicant to see if they're up to it, and then we'll be presenting a name for, probably for the October 3rd meeting for select board confirmation. And we did receive, I think 16 applications. I think I said that last month for Karen Kappenman's position as the director of the library. We have shortlisted those applications and we'll be conducting interviews over the next couple of weeks. And there's one more thing that isn't on here that escapes
Well, we
me
did
now.
get the library's annual report, and I was glad to see my name not on there as a funder, because it seems like I'm always paying fees to them. But that was a nice, very thorough report. But it doesn't mention anything about library fees in there as an income source or how much it
I think it's a
is.
pretty minor amount.
It's a minor amount. I guess I'm the only one who pays.
There's a poster of you, like a check bouncer, you know?
No, thanks to Tom Lacusa, we've been.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, no, I didn't realize I used the library often until I started paying fines, and I said, now I'm using the library. So those of you who haven't paid fines are not using it very much.
So we did get a grant. I haven't received the official notification. I actually got a notification from Senator Lesser's office by virtue of looking for a quote for a press release that I didn't see go out, but we applied for a $13,000 grant to do feasibility analysis of our parking lots and rooftops for, I think I talked before, an RFP for solar panels.
Right.
As you know, we wouldn't be off takers because our consumption is tied up in net metering credits, but we could lease the space to people who want to develop solar. But we need to apply for the grants to do that, you need to have some certification from structural engineers and people like that you can actually handle it. And so there's $13,000 that we'll be administering through with PVPC will help us get that done. So we did get that grant. And there was one other one that was important. I can't remember now.
We talked about dementia earlier.
Yeah, spreading.
Retirement party if you can.
Yeah, there is a retirement party on September 29th. I did send that out to the board. I did mention the cleanup day. Sorry.
I think you covered just most of the stuff. I can't think of anything else you missed. But you're thinking there's something else.
No, I know there's something else that I didn't. Huh? We are advertising. We'll be doing interviews for the outreach coordinator. I think I announced that Mike Squindo had left.
Yeah.
I don't think you were here.
Yeah.
I don't know. Where'd he go?
He's now the director of the adult center in Agawam.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
So big job for him.
Good.
Yeah.
It's a good center.
Got nothing. Just completely gone.
Did we hear back from the AG's office at all of the park issue?
Attorney
No.
General? No.
No, we have not. And honestly, it takes them a couple of months to do they're on a statutory deadline to approve our bylaw stuff from town meetings. They approve our bylaws that we approve at town meeting, and that takes months. So something like this, I don't know where it's gonna go. Might as well, I'm not gonna think of it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we've covered everything. I can't see anything that you missed. I thought you did a pretty thorough report, and if it is missing, we can see it next month.
Right.
You can bring it up next time. Any subcommittee reports?
Or question.
Pardon?
I've been out of town so much, so we're
Yeah.
supposed to, we're supposed to be getting ads out for the Grinspoon project to tell people that the letters are arriving at their doorstep, the people that have been chosen for the project in Longmeadow. And we're going to be getting out press releases and things like that to tell people, open up the letters. And I'm right now blocking them. What is the name of the letter that they will receive from people? It says Grinspoon, and there's another term to it, and I can't remember. But even if you weren't chosen, you are able to go to, there's a phone number that's being handed out where you can call, and they will offer you advice on what grants are available and how to better insulate your home.
I figured it out, Tom. I look at my staff meeting notes, Debbie, once again, being detailed and taking notes took care of me. I think we talked last time about the MSBA. Was going to do a due diligence walkthrough of the middle schools. I did participate in that.
Oh, right, yes, that's right.
And I will say that the architects that they brought with them as, I guess, their consultants there who help review applications really read the SOIs in a very detailed and thorough way, really asked very specific questions about the buildings, and so I was very impressed by their level of knowledge and understanding of the SOI. We walked through, and I naturally tried to pull people aside and said, so how do we compare to all the other schools? But they would not. They said, that's the evaluation we need to make. They were very professional, and I couldn't get anything out of them. But it is just a step in the process. I didn't get the impression that we are the two worst middle schools in the state. And I do think that there are issues that they understand, like we have all understood, on the horizon need to be addressed. Now they finally can see those visually, so they understand them. But I think it was, like I said, my takeaway was I don't think it changes our spot in the order, as the superintendent alluded to, and they take the stuff we give them very seriously, which is how you want it. You want them to take it very seriously.
Right, and as the superintendent stated in the Long Meadow News, our schools are just rated as like the top 2% in the country.
Yeah.
So, for them to say we're doing a lousy job with our current buildings is kind of hard for them to say, but hopefully they'll recognize areas of need. But I thought you were thinking about that big white thing in the middle of town, the Young Mansion.
Oh, no, I think it's a matter of public, I was going to matter of public record, but it is public that it has been purchased.
Yeah.
It's been reported by a group consisting of Dr. Andrew Lamb, Chris Orzelak, who lives on Eastham Lane. The board dealt with him, I think, before I got here on he developed those homes, and there's in fact, he'll be coming forward with a public acceptance vote at some point in time in the near future for that street. And then a builder who has worked with Mr. Orzelak, they're the group, and I know they're talking to prospective tenants. I think they know they're going to need it. They are going to pursue a zone change for a commercial building. They may be petitioning the select board for a special town meeting because they will not be ready for the November town meeting and developing their plans. And, I have made it clear to them that town meeting, that I'm certainly not going to endorse an open-ended zone change. We're going to want to know specifically what they're going to use the square footage for, not what it's going to look like to the level of detail of that's the kind of chair they're going to have in their room. But generally, here's how this is going to work, here's the number of cars we're expecting, here's where our parking is going to go. And I know they are engaged in developing all that information, but again, they may be asking for a special town meeting sometime in the, shortly after the first of the year to help do this. And normally I would encourage people to just wait, but given the importance, given the significance of the house and the interest in it, if they have a good plan, I may forward that request to the board.
Well, I'm sure we've heard a sigh of relief from a number of people in town who were wondering, what was going to happen with that building. And, at least we have 3 investors who are willing to take on a big challenge.
I agree with you, except I would say 3 residents.
3 residents.
Or 2 residents anyway. I don't know where the third gentleman, the contractor lives, but 2 residents.
Yeah.
One of whom is the direct abutter living in the carriage house, and the other is one who's built homes in the community and tried to be, add value. So it's not like an out-of-town investor has flown in, bought it, and
right.
We're not going to know what's what. These people really deeply care that the house is preserved and that it's a positive outcome for the community, and that's all you can hope for in an ownership group. So that's why I think they're going to come forward, I think, with a very compelling proposal to the town.
Great. Sounds exciting.
Tom?
Yes.
Just another subcommittee report. I just heard this past week that the school committee has now appointed Russell Dupre as a member of the pension review team. So now that we have a fully staffed group, we'll start getting them.
Oh, good. The pension review committee?
Well, it was a group. I was going to lead it. Got somebody from the finance committee, school committee. We've got a couple other people who've got on it as well. But I was just waiting for that last name so we can move
last
forward.
name. All right. Well, thank you, Russ Dupre, for joining the group. All right. So if there's no other subcommittee reports, I guess I can.
Before you call for a motion to
Sure.
adjourn, I'd just like to ask that we get on the upcoming agenda a discussion about marijuana retail sales in town. We are authorized to act on that, and I think the sooner we act on it one way or the other, the better off the town is.
You'll be getting a general bylaw article draft from town council shortly on that very thing.
But, okay, but I didn't think it required a bylaw.
Zoning bylaw, well, originally it was a zoning bylaw, but under the change that they did, it can be a general bylaw, and it's an outright ban if your town voted no during the referendum,
But-
which we did.
Correct, but it wouldn't be, we can't adopt bylaws.
No, legislation allows you to. Mike Schneider's looked all into this.
So we can adopt a bylaw? Okay.
Yeah.
That's fine.
I'm not saying way ahead of you, but we are prepared to put you in a position to have this discussion in the most effective way, so we're.
Thank you, but I think we need to have it sooner rather than later.
Yeah, well, like I said,
Yeah.
it would be, town meeting warrant. We're putting it for the fall town meeting warrant.
Mhm.
Would be the discussion point. If you want to discuss it outside, that's fine, but to discuss something concrete that the select board can do and the town can do about it, that's the avenue that town council is advising.
Thank you.
Okay, well, we can talk more about it, Stephen.
Yeah, I'd like to.
About, when we'll put that in. I know it's nice to have a full board back, and so we're ready to take on the world. And, but not tonight. Do we have an motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Okay, seconded?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, opposed? Oh, I see.
I said aye.
Oh, I said aye, okay. All right, well, thank you very much for watching. We'll be back 2 more weeks. Thank you very much.
You voted.